Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the America's Elite League. It is Season 4. My name is Chunks. I'm joined by the one and only Imperium. It's day number 4, and the second day that we've got to cover now, and yesterday really did not disappoint.
No, it didn't. There was definitely a lot of action. The likes of Knights really stepping things up a gear when you have a real look at how many scored 48 points in 5 games, just shy of that 10 points per average, but it was certainly a big bounce up compared to where they were lying. You also had big improvements from the likes of let me see who else as well. Sorry, just pull up. Alpha 7, well, not even an improvement. It's just a standard, consistent run of games, to be honest, from Alpha 7, scoring 63 points. In Inco Gaming, yeah, the gap is a little bit increased, and we'll go through it a bit more, but they still had a good day with 51 points secured.
Yeah, I think Inco were definitely the stars of yesterday in terms of looking at the amount of points they were able to get.
Yeah.
A lot of matches being able to pick up a decent number of eliminations to go alongside them. So it was good to see, but obviously Alpha 7 still with that lead. I'm interested to see how things kick off tonight and how things are really going to roll. Let's take a look at exactly what happened yesterday, because there were a lot of high-intensity moments. I think most of us were surprised to see Black Dragons pull out a win so early on with their performance in the first 2 days.
Yeah, it was definitely a bit of a surprise, but a pleasant surprise nonetheless. And then we saw Alpha 7 switch things up a gear in Game 2 when they grabbed themselves a chicken dinner. It was really kind of game number 3 and a good game for Lazarus, but let's be fair, it was their only good game of the day. Out of the 31 points they secured in their 4 games, 19 came from that third Sanhok game alone, so it really wasn't the most consistent day for them.
No, I think it begs the question, how can Lazarus go on like this? Are they going to continue being one of those squads that is a little bit, I guess, I don't want to say inconsistent, because obviously we're only 3 days in, but that has maybe explosive performances over consistent mid-tier performances? Like, we're seeing a lot more of the maybe top 6 or 7 teams actually able to get. I wonder how long that's really going to be viable for them, or whether they really need to switch it up. Maybe play a little bit slower, get into that late game a little bit more, focus less on eliminations and a bit more on the placement.
They've shown they can do that to an extent. In day 1, Lazarus got 37 points. In day 2, they got 53 points. But in day 1, out of the 37 points, there were 3 consistently performing games. And then in day 2, it was only 2 good games or 2 very good games, so they need to really hover that balance. They didn't quite hit the mark yesterday, but let's see what they can do today as we look at the overall standings. And Alpha 7, Inco Gaming, there's only 7 points divided.
Yeah, it's close, but I think we should maybe talk about the drop-off after Inco all the way down to Lazarus. It feels like no team has really been able to bridge that gap just yet and start putting up a fight to close it. But if Lazarus kicked things off with another performance like last night, then we could maybe see a different story to things, especially if Alpha 7 and Inco start to slip back a little bit in our first game of the evening.
And it was a solid day for Team QUESO, but there's really little dividing themselves. Lazarus, VIVO, Kid, INTZ, right? I'm glad you mentioned that drop-off between the top 2 and the rest of the standings. Lazarus down to pretty much ATON in 10th is only, I think, something like 27 points, give or take, or 25 points. But either way, it's very, very close down and in the kind of 3rd to 10th place teams. Knights, and I mentioned this at the end of yesterday's broadcast, so I would love to have seen them breach into the top 10 after yesterday's games, but they were starting on a really low note. So to get to where they are now in 13th and very much close to the likes of ATON and 10th by shy of 12 points, the opportunity is there for them today to build on yesterday's strong performances.
I do wonder here, for teams like Knights, who, you know, are a strong squad, they have a lot to prove here. A lot of people are going to be looking at them as one of the stronger teams coming into this. When they do have maybe a bit of a rough start, will they be able to get it back together? Because it felt like they tried to switch things up a little bit yesterday, going a bit more elimination point heavy, as opposed maybe in the past was a bit more placement heavy. So it's going to be interesting. We should probably have a look at which groups are going to be playing in our first match of the evening, though, because for anyone who isn't aware, we rotate groups in and out. This is the groups throughout each of these matches. One team will be getting taken out and then one team added in. So it provides a nice variety and I gotta say a lot more hot drops.
Yeah, they say variety is a spice of life, right? And the games have been certainly spicy involving all of these teams. Group A will not be playing in game number 1. God, that was some beautiful timing. So that means VIVO, Honor Souls, BULUC, CHABTAN, and oh my god, I don't know the logo. I think it's ISURUS, if I'm not mistaken, are not playing in this first game of the day.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because obviously those top teams all seemingly starting off tonight and going to be going strong. Obviously, VIVO, are a team that are up there. They have a lot of potential. They've been putting in some work, and that will maybe hamper them a little bit, having a bit of a point disadvantage, making it a bit harder to really grow that gap up ahead of them. So it's going to be rough for them. I got to say, though, for me, I want to see Black Dragons go hard. I want to see them come into this, get aggressive, get out of the gate swinging, pick up a lot more points, because we've seen that they can do it. The same can be said for Team QUESO, as yesterday maybe was a bit of a letdown for them, but I think we're maybe setting our expectations very high for a lot of these teams. But when you've got those top 2-3 teams just going hard, eliminating everyone, it's hard for everyone else to actually gain any points.
Yeah, true. And you talk about the likes of Black Dragons and Team QUESO. I'm looking at the teams that didn't perform at all yesterday, right? BULUC, CHABTAN, 2 points in 4 games. That's half a point per game, right? Polar Ace, 5 points across 4 games. And even Rise Esports, a team who looked so good in Season 3, were very close to kind of the top 3. They got 14 points in yesterday's 4 games. So I'm looking at those teams to see if they can bounce back hard in the America's Elite League Season 4, Day 4 chunks.
Yeah, it's going to be rough for them, though. Obviously, as I mentioned, teams at the top really sponging things out. But there is that gap that needs closing, and tonight is where things really kick into gear, because if that gap continues to grow, or even if it stays just how it is right now, then the teams down in that maybe 4th to 8th position are going to have a really rough battle. We're reaching the halfway point tonight, and if you haven't closed that gap and you haven't started really contending for the top 3 places, I believe, that take the majority of the prize pool, then you're going to be in a really tricky situation. So I do hope they can step it up tonight, but no promises. We are going to be kicking off our map number 1 in just a second. I'm excited. I think it's a lot of Erangel and Sanhok tonight, right, Imperium?
Yes, it is indeed. Indeed, it's going to be starting things off with Erangel by Sanhok, Erangel, Sanhok, Erangel. So at least it's 3 Erangel games and 2 Sanhoks rather than yesterday, whereas 3 Sanhok games and 2 Erangel. So hopefully we should have a little bit more of a peaceful start to these games. And I'm glad you mentioned that kind of gap closing in on towards the top 2. We want to see more teams battling for the top spot, right? Because it makes coming into the final day, the final games, even more exciting. We had it in Season 3 involving VIVO, Influence Rage, and Alpha 7, and it left for a very exciting ending in the America's Elite League Season 3. So yeah, 110%, we want to see Lazarus close that gap, not only for that excitement, but also for North America, and knowing that they can really, really compete among the best of Brazil and LATAM.
Yeah, obviously a very strong region. Kicking it off at Erangel, though, I'm interested to see how things end up unfolding here. We spoke about Knights a little bit, and obviously contesting Yaz is always a bit of a dangerous game, and it looks like the plane is going to be going right over the top, so I'd be surprised if both teams don't end up landing.
Pain path, oh my god, find my words, Imperium. Plane path is upon us. It's pretty split down the middle, chunks going from a little bit of the northeast down to a little bit of the northwest. But again, because it's pretty heavily in the middle, it will allow all these teams to kind of get to where they want to. Maybe a little bit tougher if you want to go down to military base / Novo, but other than that, it shouldn't be too much hassle for most of these teams.
No, I think everywhere should be accessible, and even if you are one of those teams that maybe likes to land over on the milli base, they are gonna maybe have an alt drop. Most teams tend to. The question is, and this is something we have to keep pointing out, is when you're in a lobby like this and teams are set into groups, rotating in and out, does that have a big effect on where the drop spots are going to be? Are there going to be maybe some teams that are a little less confident, going for ult drops a little bit more, being forced out of their drop spots by other teams? Or is there going to be a case of, you know what, we all know that we're capable of doing this, let's all get aggressive and let's take these fights?
It shouldn't be an issue. We're into day 4, right? So there should be that general level of familiarity, that VOD review-esque kind of play stuff on these teams where they've done their due diligence, and outside of some absolute extreme either playing pass or change in drop spots for some teams, there should be that level of familiarity. Team Queso getting close to Novo on their drop spot. You can see Alpha 7, Loops, I believe Lazarus, ATON, all really close around on the eastern side of the map. And as phase 1 pops up, complements the playing path, the little bit up north is generally quite centralized.
Nice little spray coming through there just to make a little bit of noise over towards Lazarus. It looks like Alpha 7 are going to be moving in a little quicker than maybe we expected to try and get those eliminations off if they are successful. But for right now, it is going to be VCO going down early. How lucky. Really nicely done with the pistol as well. Not something we get to see used too often.
It's going to allow him to at least get the revive off and keep ATON up as a full squad. Definitely a little bit tunnel vision overall for Mafioso. Off the back of only 1 knock, there was never any real massive security around confirming those elimination points or really pushing in on your own. And I believe Alpha 7 also have gotten third party by Lazarus off the back of hearing those shots. Creo getting knocked into distance. And Alpha 7, they're down to just 1 player. They only started this game as a 3-person team.
And look at this as well. Lazarus heard what was going on and now they're starting to move in. Oh, with the vehicle as well. That one came out of nowhere. More pistol eliminations, this time from Fran is just going to be chilling in there, but I think they know it's all over as the pistol shots land through. It's the micro Uzi in the end that finishes off the job, and 87 now in a really, sorry, Alpha 7 also in a really tricky position. Both teams losing players early.
Well, we said we wanted to see Lazarus step up. They're certainly giving it to us. Chunks starting this game with 3 elimination points. One of the 2 teams that are ahead of them, down to 1 player. This is shaping up to be a pretty good day. But Inco, on the other hand, fighting up against Delta Stars inside Pachinki. The hot drop is not disappointing us.
I'll be honest, this is quite ambitious here from Delta Stars to be taking a fight against a top team like Inco, but credit to them, they managed to get a knock out of it, but what was it really worth? Now you've lost 3 players, and it's all down to Saz doing what he can to try and remain in it. He does hear the player down below, and he preps the nade, but opts not to throw it yet. As he sees the second drop down, though, that might start to change. Nade comes close. Is it close enough? Not quite. Micro Uzi UMP meta definitely in play right now. Saz just holding up top. You gotta feel like this is the time for Inco to make the push. That's exactly what happens when he takes down 1. Make it a second, switches over to the Scar, goes for the drop shot, tries to pre-fire, but it just isn't happening as Saz has to move back, tries to get into cover, tries to pop the heal. Surely Inco are going to be able to hear this. They might just see the door, but no, he's closed it. And Inco starting to maybe play a bit of a guessing game.
Oh my god, Sassy, are you gonna pull out the miracle play? Stands up door, and unfortunately gets taken down by Romulos, and good effort for Sassy as the last player. Delta Stars, but Inco come out on top as a full squad.
Wow, impressive to see there from coming in big, showing why they're on the top teams, and that might just help them with that gap a little bit, help close it up and move them up a little bit further. So nice to see from them. And getting Pachinki as well in a circle like this is no easy feat. They have so many rotation options.
Yeah, they can even just kind of lay low and wait until phase 2. And normally I wouldn't say that with the Pachinki drop, but contextually speaking, with the North of River in play and the fact that they've already taken an engagement, which what were 3-4 minutes into the game, and they've only really comfortably starting their looting phase, I'm okay with them waiting until phase 2 to rotate out of that city. There's plenty of options in front of them, as you alluded to. Rise Esports in apartments and school, gonna be easy peasy lemon squeezy for them. While Loops, they're down to 2 players, and they're really just gonna kind of take things slowly inside the middle of the circle.
Yeah, I like the pistol. I'll be honest though, I'm not sure how viable it is late game. I think that playing apartments like this is one of those positions where it is very much pray for the circle to come to us. So I'd maybe like to see them send a player or 2 up to the J compound just to get a bit of a split going on. And as they hop in the vehicles, it looks like that's exactly what they're going to do. So really good work from them to notice that this is a late game position, but are they moving or not?
So when you say J compound, because the terminology is a little bit different.
Oh, I see.
For some, when you say J compound, which compound are you talking about?
So you know that little compound with the glass buildings over to the northeast of apartment? That's what we call J compound, just because it's shaped like a J.
Across the road.
Up to the right. If you're running from apartments up to the north and you head round to the right. But let's maybe talk about that a little bit later, because we spoke about Knights so much in the pre-show, and now they're showing exactly why. Taking an aggressive fight early, but it seems like things are almost going the way they did yesterday, and they are just falling apart. Influence Rage just tearing them apart, and Knights with only Xenox left up. Sure, he's put in some work. He's done some good things in the previous nights, but I'm not sure how easy of a feat this is going to be, whether it's even going to be possible for him.
Yeah, he's on his own, and now he's going to get back into his Tesla and disengage away from the fight as a solo player. No, Knight's going for a pretty early deep rotation into the circle, and what's important for Influence Rage is not only did they grab themselves 3 elimination points, but they've kept themselves up as a full squad. I believe it's ESTORM and INTZ are getting pretty close to each other in the cube compound outside of North George. INTZ going for a bit of a 2-2 split between North George and Shooting Range Hillside, while Nova, sticking to the southeast for the time being, have XSET in their sights.
You can hear the vehicles moving through. They must have an idea that X are nearby, but it's just a bit too long range to really take the engagement. I like what Nova are doing, though. They're a confident squad. They're going to try and go for the limbs as they hop in the vehicles, start making a move. Alpha 7, though, let's look at this team stats, because they have not been disappointing. There's a reason they're in first, even though this game, it might have slipped a little bit.
77 elimination points? I thought it was 74, actually. I don't know if that's actually 77 elimination points. But either way, a hell of a lot, and a good kind of, 4 or 7 ahead of their nearest competitor when it comes to elimination points. And they've been very aggressive. They've been very controlling across these days. And it's typical Alpha 7 playstyle, to be perfectly honest. They've been around PUBG Mobile for years, whether it's one roster or another. They have shown themselves to be a massively aggressive team in a more global stage. Yeah, they struggled maybe from a rotational standpoint, from a positional standpoint against more international teams, but there's no denying that when they put in the work, when they get aggressive, when they get confident, they're a very dangerous team.
Very formidable indeed. Another one of those squads, though, has to be Lazarus. Look at this, actually chasing down the XSET players right now. You can see AJ out here in the buggy. You know what? I like it from Lazarus. They know they need points. They know they need to start closing the gap. You can see them going for the sprays, and it actually looks like they're just going to pull up over in these dips, which are a very strong position, but typically not usually played until the late game. Maybe why they're turning away from it now.
God damn it, I love that from Lazarus. Take no prisoners. Have no mercy. No fear, just fight. But of course, you can't get tunnel vision when you're trying to chase somebody down, right? Because it can bait you into the rest of the squad. They hadn't really massively controlled the fight overall, but XSET are down to 2 players. Team QUESO now rotating through the south Pachinki Hills waiting for phase 2 to pop up, and that kind of makes sense when you consider where they dropped to. Their looting phase would have started a little bit later than most of the teams, therefore naturally the rotation away from looting is going to take a bit longer, and they're going in maybe a little bit blinder into this kind of circle, so it'll be better for them to wait until phase 2 pops up to see where they want to shift to.
Nova able to flush that one away, no real problem. Nearly actually knocking his own teammate though, so gotta be careful with that one. I'm sure that there are plenty of meds on those bodies that they should be good to grab though. Throwing down the smoke for a little bit of extra safety. Can't criticize it, especially if they don't know where the teammates are. I think you can make the argument that maybe you shouldn't throw unless you know there's someone with LOS on you, but this early on in the game, better to be safe than sorry, especially with bodies on the floor.
There's no smoke without fire, and Polar Ace looking to fire up their day 4 America's Elite League, and you honestly couldn't ask for a freer elimination point because Xenox is the last remaining player of Knights, right? That's the only reason. That's no shade on Knights because they are very team, but in terms of 1v3, it was always going to be a lot easier for Polar Ace, and gotta say, despite it being relatively easy, they didn't necessarily exactly know that there was just one player left, and they still got pretty aggressive on that push, and that was good to see from Polar Ace.
I think it was maybe a bit of a guessing game and playing the odds right here.
Yeah.
What are the chances that maybe you're taking shots over towards a player in a compound like this and only one of them shooting back, especially in the early game?
True.
A lot of teams will just send one player to a compound like this. So I think if that was the case, that's a really good read coming through from Polar Ace. But either way, really strong aggression, and you'll love to see it early on. Equally aggressive, though, have to be Nova's Kindness able to do himself a little bit of damage, picking up his teammate. That's 4 elimination points now for Nova. A good way to start the evening.
They did have a very poor day yesterday, to be fair. Chunks, they only got themselves 24 points, and 19 of them came from that last game, so it was a bit of a saving grace in the last game of yesterday's games. There you go. But overall, they are a very good team, and no doubt about it, they'll come in today refreshed, refocused, re-energized, ready to dominate the lobby, as Polar Ace are going to scale back off the back of phase 2, shifting up, and it did go down south chunk, so that north of the river side is a lot more in the minority of the circle, so focus on the likes of Potato Hill, the compound in between, or the buildings in between Potato Hill and School, which kind of XSET and Rise have a little bit underneath their control. I know Apartments is in the center, and I get it for XSET as a duo because it kind of makes sense, but I feel like that's gonna hit a brick wall a little bit earlier than they think.
Yeah, I think, as we mentioned, this compound is not ideal. There's the J compound, for anyone who was wondering, by the way. This is J compound.
Does that really look like a J?
If you look at it from above, it looks like a J. Because you got the buildings on the right and the building at the bottom. It looks like a J.
But it looks like an L.
It's a backwards L, then.
Yeah.
That's a J.
Well, no, because it doesn't have the other building extend. Like, are you talking about a capital J?
Yeah. I mean, like, look, obviously we don't have curved buildings in PUBG. I think that this is the closest to a J, right?
You know what? You know what?
Just give me this one.
I'll give you it.
Okay.
I'll give you it. 100% I'll give you a chunk. And no, on a genuine standpoint, I will start referring to it as J compounds myself, because I think it is important that those namesakes do come in. It allows the viewers to familiarize especially when it's not on it in terms of the camera. So yeah, I'll definitely be calling it J compound from now on.
Yeah, and for anyone who was wondering, that hill right there, I like to call it Volcano as well. You got that little dip. We are having a couple of technical issues. Just to explain why, we are a language stream. We received the feed from another producer, so we're having a couple of technical issues getting the stream from that producer to our producer, so apologies about that. We're going to get back into the game as soon as we've got it back up, but we do have the map feed, and things are closing in. a lot of pressure tending to build up around the middle, as is kind of natural, but the danger to that school apartments area is just how open it is. So the next phase, the next zone, is really going to pressure a lot of teams if it moves away from that central apartment school Potato Hill area.
We're going to head back into the game as Lazarus push in on towards the 2 remaining players of Loops. Take no prisoners into J compound, Chunks.
I like it. You've immediately adopted it. I like spreading the love. It's just I think it's a good way to try and remember compounds. If everyone kind of has a similar name for them. Lazarus, though, they know exactly how strong this compound is, and they are ready to take it. Loops are actually going for a lot of pre-nades right here. Molotovs, too, to try and defend against the push, and it is going to work to a certain extent. Lazarus now losing 1. Still, though, Loops have to stay up. That nade is close, and alongside the shots, down goes Asia. Now it's all down to the 2 remaining players from Lazarus, and considering they had a 2-player advantage, now a 2v2, not the place you want to be. Making a 2v1, though, that's a whole lot more advantageous as he tries to peek out. Fears is there to shut down Team Loops. Not ideal for them, but 7 elimination points now for Lazarus. This is more of what we were expecting.
Yeah, good stuff from Lazarus. That definitely wasn't the cleanest of engagements, the cleanest of team fight wins. They were lucky to an extent that Loops only had 2 players left in the game, right? But in the end, they come out on top. Phase 3 shifted over to the west. You have Headshot Hills in play. You have the compounds outside of school, in between school and Pachinki, that are pretty important. And I was going to allude about this. Inco did exactly what I said they would do in the previous phase, or even in the first phase. They waited until phase 2 popped up. They moved out. They've locked down a building that's in between school and Pachinki, and now as phase 3 shifts it in their favor, they're looking damn good inside the circle.
Really impressive indeed. Rise are in such a strong position to be able to hold out a lot of squads, but I think the danger of school is its crashability. You don't really have amazing line of sights. If someone comes over that Rozok hill and crashes into the walls, there's not really too much you can do to defend against it, just because the way that school's built, you can't really get great angles. But I'll tell you what, Nova are doing a great job of defending their compound over here.
They've gotten an initial knock on the Team QUESO. I don't like the 3-1 split, the way they had it shaped up. I think it should be the other way around. 3 players down in the compound, 1 locked in. And now Nitsu, yeah, okay, he's on his own, and the revive is coming through, but it's not going to be easy for them. And Nova sniffed the opportunity in through the window. Koi, along with his teammate Kindness, is going to be able to get the elimination point.
Really well done there from Nova to actually work in that pinch, find the play, and be able to find the elimination. Ooh. But now it's Inco starting to get involved from range. Look at that from Golden, the DP. We've seen it used so much recently. I love to see it, especially at that kind of range and finding knocks. Really impressive to see.
It got a nerf a couple of patches ago, but it's still quite heavily in the meta. You can't full-on spray as cleanly. It's very much more of a burst fire weapon now, but yeah, indeed, it's still within the meta and very cleanly utilized in the right hands. Blue Zone now starting to close in on phase 3. Influence Rage still up as a full squad. 6 eliminations in their back pockets, looking for more at the ESTORM. Federal onto Lewis.
Beautiful spray right there to take down Lewis. Now ESG going to be losing 1 early. It looks like Influence Rage, they don't really want to force this fight too much. Obviously, they want to get aggressive, capitalize on the elimination that they've gotten, and it looks like they're going to get a lot more aggressive than I expected. But Law right now just going around in circles, trying to bait out some shots so Lil Boy up top can return the fire and crack some heads.
Phase 3 Blue Zone continue to close in. I don't get what ESTORM were really doing, right? Because we were halfway through phase 3 Blue Zone closing in. They were starting to reposition one of their players. If it was off the back of hearing the vehicles from Influence Rage, and honestly, that's just consistent to what ESTORM have been playing in terms of passive, fearful playstyle. And that hurts me because it's not what I want to see. Or if they were just thinking, okay, we're going to reposition, it's way too late in side phase 3 to do that.
Imperium, I just saw something, and obviously we haven't seen the full map yet. There it is. What a shift that was. We spoke about how dangerous it could be if it moves away from school apartments kind of area, going all the way up to the northwest of Rozhok. You're pretty much forced into the city there, right? Sure, there's a couple of hills that we like to call the Badlands Ridges over to the west of school. That's the name that a couple of us have for it. So
we call it Headshot Hills.
I like that hills because you can only really peek out your head there, so a lot of nice little dips and pivots that teams should be able to play, but it's not going to be an easy one, and it might just be a case of getting there as late as possible so you don't have to fight 5 teams at once.
And XSET tried to push in. They had gone to apartments and they're like, okay, look, we're going to try and play into the center circle, but Influence Rage already had that area locked down. Trey, the last remaining player, actually, he's the last remaining player of Alpha 7 going up, of Polar Ace going up against the last remaining player of Alpha 7 inside the Ruins Cathedral. It's outside of this Phase 4 circle will rise on the eastern edge. A little bit of top of the Rozhok Hill shooting up at Nova.
Rise are just going to play this hillside, but the question is how far do they want to move into it? If you move a little bit too far to the west, then you open yourself up to those teams down to the south that are maybe playing a little bit of a dip. So Rise do have to be careful, equally so though. It have to be Alpha Settle player left up, does throw a grenade, ends up actually falling off the cliff, which is never ideal. Polar Ace now have the info, a second frag coming out, but it's just a little bit far for now. UMP meta in full effect as both players hesitant to go for the peak, but more than happy to take a couple hot shots, make that position known. Trey's been spotted out goes the hip fire, and there it is. Alpha 7, even with one player, able to get themselves a nice elimination point.
Honestly, between the two players, and I love Trey, and I do genuinely think he's a strong player, but you clearly saw between the two of them which one was more proactive, which one wanted the elimination point. Swaggin, he took control, he took it, and there you go. Bob's your Uncle Fanny's, your Aunt Lazarus are going to push on in. They're going to engage onto the members of Black Dragons, and Black Dragons do go down.
Yep, Lazarus, sure they will have taken some casualties, but they should be able to get those back up pretty quick. I do worry, though, about Law, because look at this position. It seems that he knows Lazarus have players off to that side, even if he's not shooting just yet. Team QUESO, though, they are actively shooting over towards Inco, trying their best to find a bit of damage, because they're going to need to move through Inco to get over into this super eastern circle.
They kind of more got away from Nova in the sense of Nova in the previous circle went for a bit of a big central push. Now they're on the southern edge as the next phase did shift to the northeast.
It's a rough one, isn't it? I feel like everyone now is going to be scrapping for that hillside, and there's going to be a couple of solos or duos that maybe make it actually into Rozhok able to survive after the squad get torn apart. So hopefully we will see some success for a couple of these squads as Becca does get ready to throw out a nade. It could be perfect right onto one of those players, but seemingly just a little short for now. Immediately goes for the res, only 2 players left up. Remember, in QUESO, maybe a little bit hesitant to peek right now.
Time is ticking away. 35 seconds until the blue zone starts to close in on phase 5. Of course, Team QUESO have the body advantage and need to use that to leverage the players of Inco and get that squad right before they focus on trying to enter into the edge of the circle. I do believe the members of Rise are kind of taking a couple of shots in their direction. Without Team QUESO, they swing on through and they get the squad wipe.
QUESO learning lessons directly from Inco yesterday. That's how Inco managed to get themselves a chicken dinner over on that shooting range finish when it looked like they really shouldn't have. Taking the vehicles, getting aggressive, beautiful to see. Nova, though, actually getting aggressive onto the vehicle, shooting a player out of the car, looking for a second up in the buggy, but it's not going to be the case. Kindness, though, immediately goes for the flood. 7 eliminations so far for Nova, and they've only lost 1 player out of it. Koi is down low. Has already found a knock of his own, looking to find the rest of Rise if Mythic doesn't come up and find an angle, which unfortunately they're able to.
Never mind the fact that the little bit that the Nova players are in are absolute magnet for nades. So if it's not the bullets, it's going to be nades that put Nova under a continued amount of pressures. The next circle is about to pop up and it centralizes away from the Rozhok buildings. The road split in the middle. There's absolutely nothing covering these players at all, than possibly the vehicles they can use to make it into the edge of the circle.
J-Way right now is the only player inside the circle as Rise start to get aggressive, try to move their way through. They finally found a crack in the armor of Nova, and they rip it wide open. In they come, happy to take this hillside, but it's still not quite in. As you mentioned, this is such an open zone. That's why I think that J-Way is maybe the only player really equipped to try and deal with it. But if Rise get the peak, find an angle, then it's all over for him. And, well, Rise should have fairly free reign on what they want to do with this circle.
Influence Rage. They're in the compound to the north of Watertown in the previous phase. Oh no, 2 phases ago. In the previous phase, off the back of the circle shift, they full sent it onto the buildings in the edge of Rozhok, and now they've been kicked in the face once again. They have Lazarus to the north of them, Inco to the south.
They're all prepping that grenade. His teammate throwing one as well. Let's see if there's any success. Yes, there is.
Jesus
Kobe
Christ.
right in through the window to find the knock. And, well, is it any surprise to see Influence Rage getting in the vehicles? The question becomes, do they try and push? Do they move back? It looks like they want those elimination points. 8 already. Can they make it into double digits?
I like that little smoke that was pulled out to try and cover a side angle, and J-Way, he was the only player inside the edge of the circle. He goes down at the hands of Rise.
Was able to take down one outside the vehicle. As Little Boy going to try and do the same.
God,
nice jumping
Jesus
UMP
Christ.
right there to find a hip fire. Can he find it? Not looking like it just yet, but a whole lot more successful. Unfortunately, though, as we all know, the play zone is the only real winner in this game because it will end everybody, even if they don't defeat each other. So, unfortunate there. Lazarus, though, making the most out of the play zone, forcing Rise in. Going to maybe try and gatekeep that final player.
Mufasa across the road, Senna Texas behind them. It is 3v4, I believe, in favor of Rise, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Yes, that is the case, and they get 1 knock.
Nicely done. Can they find a second? Mythic, yes he can. The 3xM4 coming big, but there's the grenade they were looking for. Nunez finishes it up with the seat swap out of the vehicle, and it's Rise that pick up the first chicken dinner of the evening. A team on the rise, maybe Imperium, or is it too early to say that?
No, they're a confident team, and they'll take that win, and they'll be able to build on it. So certainly, pun intended, a team on the rise. And I alluded to right in the pre-show, Chunks, I wanted to see the likes of Rise, who in Season 3 impressed us heavily. But off the back of a poor day, they slipped down massively, and now they are indeed on the up. I'm more impressed, though, as well with Lazarus. Again, what we're asking, it's coming true in this game one. Lazarus helping to close the gap between Inco and Alpha 7. This is really shaping up.
I also really like the fact that there were so many teams in the end game that had a lot of eliminations go with it. Look at Influence Rage as a prime example for that. They had 8 eliminations coming into this fight. Didn't even have to really make it much further into the game. They knew they had a strong one, so they committed to holding out INTZ, which was a pretty smart play. The Molotovs worked out, even if they lost a player of their own to one. But, I mean, beautifully done to hold them out, force them through. The hit fire from Lil Boy was amazing, followed by a second to do the damage. Sure, he didn't get the kill, but he kept them out and got himself an extra placement out of it.
There was a bit of a third party from Rise across the road, unfortunately for Influence Rage, but there's no doubt about it. That was a beautiful engagement onto INTZ. It was just unfortunate it was so late in the game that there was that third party potential. But this is the closing moments. Chunks for Rise just knew they had the game in the bag, and they didn't take it for granted. They swing on through and took the game under control.
Taking a look at the stats, though, this is what I meant about the eliminations. Look at those top 3 teams. Taking out basically, half the lobby right there, nearly, just with those top 3 teams. So that is really impressive to see. Outside of that, it feels like eliminations were hard to come by. Even squads like Inco, who were definitely very elim heavy, only able to get 6 points out of that game, 5 of those being eliminations.
Damn, you're not wrong. When you first said it, I was like, no way it was about half the lobby. But indeed, 30 points between the top 3 teams, that is pretty much half the lobby indeed. And you definitely won't be unhappy about that. Nova coming back a little bit stronger off the back of a poor day 3 in the Americas Elite League Season 4, getting themselves 8 points. They can take that and build on it. XSET with 7, but it was really the majority of the placement points where the last player was able to sneak his way into a top 4 position.
Let's talk about Knights, though. What's going on here? They started off yesterday with a lot of momentum. Sure, it slipped off, but they were getting aggressive early, and it seemed to work yesterday. Are teams now maybe getting a read on the playstyle of Knights and expecting an early game fight if you land near them?
No, it's just one of those things that can happen. They pushed in on the across the north of the river, right? So it's not like teams really caught them out on the position they were in. It was very much Knights went in onto that fight and they ended up losing it.
Look at that, though, from Rise. It shows just how brutal that final circle was. The final few circles, I should say, when you look at smoke usage, 16 thrown, which maybe doesn't sound like a lot, but they were all thrown at the end game, it feels like. They didn't really use many early on, so no. I think it shows just how tough those ridges really are at the end play.
Yeah, and I would even say the majority of their elimination points came from, I think, Phase 5 onwards, right? It wasn't even that early game aggression that kind of set them up. It was that kind of slow-burning, methodical movement on the eastern side of the map. As their circle shifts, they locked down Rostock Hill, and then it was easy come, easy go from there on out. 24,000 travel. 673 healing. It's not really something you can complain about. And even the return on investment between knocks and elimination points, that's also not something you can be disappointed in.
I do like the fact that Rise as well, even though they dropped over departments and they had what would have been a relatively strong position, even if I wouldn't recommend taking it so early. And they were proactive, even though they had a great position inside zone, even though a couple of the zones did come in their direction. They were actively getting out there, scouting out the positions. We saw them move down to that potato hill at first, and when the zone shifted up to the north a bit, they got active going up there. So that's really impressive to see from Rise. I like the proactivity, and I think it's something that maybe a couple teams forget about. They maybe get a bit complacent in their positions.
Having a look at the MVP of that game, it was Fears from Lazarus with 6 elimination points alone. This player was really at the forefront of the team's strong result. Yeah,
absolutely. Being able to put out so many eliminations and take such little damage, 179 taken in that match. It shows that sometimes if you're just able to be accurate with your shots, you don't have to fire that many of them. 721 fired, which, sure, it sounds like a lot, but when you're in a strong position, you want to take those shots and you don't want to take any in return, and that's something that Fears did really, having to heal up too much. And sure, when he went down, he went down for good, but I mean, impressive all the same to be able to make it so far into the late game without taking as much damage.
It's obviously hard to do this intentionally, but clearly, like, the less you need to heal, the more you're able to engage and more you're able to focus on getting the elimination points. Looking at the stats across the board between eliminations, damage, and assists, it was Lazarus or Joey the highest amount of damage and Kiseki the highest amount of assists. It was very much a team effort for Lazarus.
Yeah, we should also point out as well, obviously Fears was the player who was on the previous slide with the most stations, that tied with Mythic with 6, but it was Joey and that was really putting out a lot of work right there. If you see the amount of damage he was doing, he was also in terms of the number of assists. So I think it shows that Lazarus, they've got a good thing going on. Sure, it's always going to naturally happen where you have one player who's maybe in a bit more of an off angle is able to flush out the eliminations and the knocks that the rest of the team are able to get. But still really strong from Lazarus, showing that they are a cohesive unit. A lot of heals coming out from Koi right there, and it's not really too surprising with how aggressive how aggressive Nova got early on in the game.
But generally speaking, it's not that much healing that was utilized, right, in terms of the highest 333. That's kind of like 3 to 4 first aid. So it kind of shows that a lot of these engagements were very quick to be executed. There was very little kind of poke a player, get a knock here, and then he gets, he kind of heals up and then pokes another player, right? It was just clinical finishes across the board as we look at the overall standings. Alpha 7, 157. Inco Gaming, 154. Lazarus, 145. That is what we want to see.
That is how we wanted the top 3 to start looking like. Now the question becomes, INTZ, QUESO, Influence Rage, when are you going to start picking it up? Is it your game next to close that gap and really make it a bit more of a fierce competition right now? And I do have to say as well, on your previous point right there, I think it's important to take into account the fact that, it isn't all about one player. It is about a team effort. It's about being able to go in there and get aggressive early while still being very smart about it and not getting over aggressive. That's something Lazarus did extremely well that game. And I think that, honestly, even though they weren't the ones to be able to take the whole thing, they did amazing work. And I think that they really stole the show in terms of closing up that gap.
And now I want to see kind of Team QUESO join in the mix, right? They're only 37 points behind. Yeah, okay, it's rare Alpha 7 are going to have a bad performance, even Inco to an extent. But the opportunity is there. They are within breathing distance of the top 3. And you could say even INTZ along the way, along with Influence Rage, there's only 3 points dividing 4th, 5th, and 6th. And hell, Rise Esports, the winners of the previous game, 115. There you go. Again, the chances are there.
Let's see if they're going to be able to step it up. That's the first game down of the evening. It's made a fairly drastic change to the overall standings that I don't think we really expected to happen.
Yeah.
But that's game number 1 down. Still 4 more to go tonight, so you do not want to miss any of the action. I believe we're hopping over to Sanhok next, so if you like those fast-paced matches, stick around. We're going to be back in just a couple of minutes with more America's Elite. Welcome back, everyone, to the America's Elite League. Game 1 did not disappoint. What a circle that was, Imperium. I love seeing it when it's completely open and teams really have to think about how they're going to play it. And I think that's something we saw really well there from Rise, being very proactive in the way they played their positions, playing that hill south of Rozhok, getting the high ground, and then pushing in, making the most out of it. And well, obviously, we talk about the groups a little bit. One of these groups is going to be out. It was Group A that was out in the previous match, so they're now going to be coming in, and Group B are out. So we saw it yesterday. Black Dragons got the win in Game 1. Then they had a bit of a break, and then we didn't see too much after that. Let's hope that isn't the case for Rise.
Yeah, let's hope it isn't indeed. They're going to be obviously out of this game too, along with Team Queso and Influence Raid. So kind of 3 teams who are within a breathing distance of the top 3 are not going to be playing in this second game. So to an extent, it's a bit of an opportunity for the likes of Alpha 7, Inco, and Lazarus to increase that gap a little bit more, and I think make it to an extent a bit harder for the teams below them.
Here it is, Sanhok game number 2. Look, let's look at yesterday as an example. So much action start to finish. It feels like on a map like Sanhok, it's quite small. It feels like things don't really stop. So if you haven't already gone and got yourself a drink and a snack, now's the time to, because for the next probably half hour, things are not going to stop.
Like a action movie, call it, let's say, the Expendables of PUBG Mobile. Sanhok does not disappoint when it comes to explosions, excitement. A lot of utility can be used in the right way, whether it's mollies, nades, or even smokes, and the plane path is upon us. I don't normally note the plane path, but it is a pretty heavily north plane path. Yeah, okay, you can generally get to where you want to on any plane path, but it certainly is going to be a bit of a bigger stretch for a lot of the teams who want to head down south.
Yeah, and if you are one of those teams that maybe wants to land over on the eastern side, maybe towards Quarry, that's a spot that we've seen quite a few teams land in. It is going to be quite a stretch. You're probably going to take a little bit longer to get there, so it is going to cut into the looting time. Obviously, it's Sanhok Phase 1. It's more likely than not that you're going to be in it. So I don't think these teams have to worry too much. But if you are in a position like Quarry and it does end up being dead center, you want to be able to loot quickly and immediately get into a strong defendable position. Because it feels like every team in this lobby likes to go Quarry for some reason.
Phase 1 is up north. A bit of the water in play, about kind of 10 to 15%. Kind of looks like a Christmas pudding the way it's kind of shaped. You have the cream and the on top, right, and then you have the round black pudding going down. I don't know why I thought that, but yeah, a bit of a Christmas pudding there inside this Phase 1. But Knight Loop's going to be fighting in Pineapple.
Xenok's going to try and open things up. He was the last player standing last time that Knights fought. Let's see if he can maybe keep that the case. Unfortunately not. It's going to be Chief that's able to swing out wide, get the knock, and now, unfortunately for Knights, they lose a second as well. They're in a really tricky position, but so is Chief. Look at the meds. There's nothing to work with. He needs a teammate smoke to stand a chance of getting out of here, and if a nade comes through, well, it's all but over.
Is that Knights' second knock / elimination point?
I believe
Not quite
so.
sure. Yeah, maybe you're right, to be fair. Yeah, you're dead right. Chico went down, and more importantly, that allowed Loops to also get the revive to keep themselves up as a full squad. Yes, they haven't confirmed the elimination onto Xenox, but at the end of the day, they still come out as a body advantage in this Pinam fight.
It's one thing thinking, oh, well, they got the revive onto Xenox, everything's going to be fine now. It's still a 3-man squad, and it's Knights. They should be able to pull this off, but you have to take into account, you're so early on in the game, the chances are he's at most got a level 1 or 2 vest. It's going to be shredded now. A couple more bullets and it's all over. The med situation is also not ideal. You can see Coops has a first aid, but that's about it. That's, I think, why we see a lot of the nades coming through rather than a typical gunfight right now. It is just about tossing them over and trying not to expose yourself and potentially take any damage because there's no way to heal it.
Take note as well of that one player for Nova Zfan on this southern hill of Pioneer. This is something that he's done in the past along with the rest of his Nova team. They know that Loops and Knights are going to fight in Pioneer, and he would have heard the shot. So sticking on top of the Pioneer allows him to possibly third party, not only get an elimination point, but even help this squad wipe come through, so it's easier for the rest of the Nova side to maybe take an isolated fight onto the team that end up coming out on top.
I'll be honest, I maybe got a little bit overexcited there when I saw Xenox in that position. I thought he had the read that the two players were downstairs right next to the window, and he had a nade in hand, but unfortunately maybe not realizing exactly where those players are and wasn't able to get the nade off, so not converting it to any points just yet. I do wonder, Loops, like, I get the idea of having a player anchor in and making sure that no one sneaks around, but this is a really risky one, having a solo on the other side of the bridge. If Hoops tries to hold that bridge and he tries to cross, well, it's over. It's very hard to make it through such an open area if a player has a line of sight on you.
You're not wrong, but knowing that they have technically that body advantage, even with Cardozo across the river, it's still a 3v3 fight. Now, of course, if one of their players gets knocked, it's massively important that Cardozo not only joins up with the rest of the team, or at least uses his position to leverage a little bit of a recontrol. But either way, I don't mind how Loops have their position set up. Knights do seem a lot more pinched. You can see the distance as well between and how open that terrain is between the two players and the one player. Coops can really provide very little support for the rest of his team, or if one of them gets knocked, it's very risky. He can use the wall, but other than that, it's still going to be difficult.
It really will. I mean, Loops, they're doing everything they can to get an opening knock, but they've got 3 players inside of one building. I get the idea of maybe having 2 because, you know, it is an early game fight. You want to be playing for trades, but I think that when your loot is as sparse as theirs is right now, having 3 players in one building is maybe not the play. I hope that they can prove me wrong, though. I hope that they'll be able to clutch this one out because they have really fought hard to stay in this.
Looking at the position of other teams, Lazarus have a 4-man spread on the coastal line of the mainland up by the black hole outside of Tapmock. You have 2 teams on that northwest island, VIVO and ESTORM, with VIVO using the high ground, but Adrian doesn't know that one of the players of ESTORM is there and he's going to get caught out for it.
Really nicely done from them to be able to make the most out of a kind of unknown position. That does leave VIVO with now only 2 players left up over at the top of the hill. You can see Grell in there tries to throw out a nade. Is it going to be able to connect? It seems like it can, but it's not quite enough to get the knock. Immediately throws out a second looking for that damage, but by this point, they've already started to make the move. VIVO now overexposing themselves a little, I'll be honest, pushing over that hillside. If I was them, I'd be trying to move back, but I like the confidence. I like the fact they're fighting tooth and nail, but I'm just not sure how much they're going to be able to make out of it.
Yeah, they should easily be disengaging away from this. What they do like is these Storm are looking to push this. They want to try and confirm that squad hype, and they're going to be able to send VIVO packing down the mountain on the northwest island. Probably head towards Hating. One of the ESTORM players is in the river in between the mainland and the northwest island. The rest of the team covering the mountainside. Now, ESTORM could focus a bit more. They're going to have to think about how they reposition as Loops are going to push in onto Knights.
Knew it was going to happen. It was only a matter of time, and there it is, the DBS. You'll love seeing it used. Takes down 1, flushes out the second. Now it's only 1 left up from Knights. It's Coops this time around. Xenox already having been taken out. You can see them pushing in. UMP, as always, the go-to weapon of choice for these players inside the buildings. Nade doesn't come out. Looks like he doesn't want to burn through just yet, but now as the team start to make some noise, start to apply some pressure, in comes the hip fire, and it's all over. Knights are out in 16th position. Not great for them, I'll be honest, especially because they didn't get much last game either.
It's a shame. It really is a big shame. But at the end of the day, you got to be impressed at how Knights took the opportunity that not came through. I don't know exactly how it started, but clearly it was finished cleanly, cohesively by Loops without losing a single player. Oh, Nova opted not to stay on that hillside south of Painan. Maybe they miss an opportunity to third party. Oh well, that's always something you can't control. Is Cielo on a higher mountain on the northwest island looking to take shots onto ESTORM. They do have Lazarus a little bit further around them, so it's a bit of a three-way dance, even if it is from a distance for VIVO KNGHT.
I almost like the idea of VIVO KNGHT making a bit of noise, forcing the shots from the other team, and then Lazarus sneaking up behind, because it definitely feels like if Lazarus have the info after the performance they had last game, I mean, we saw how many eliminations they had, it wouldn't surprise me to see them push up, and it seems like that's the case. They're all pre-boosted. You can tell they're ready for a fight. They just have to be careful about giving away those audio cues, because obviously Fear being in such a kind of sneaky position, it will allow Walls to start to move his way back. But now as the hipfire comes out, it's going to be Kaseki that's the first to fall. Fears is just nowhere to be found. Luckily, though, his teammate is able to make something out of it, and there it is. Cello just more than happy to third party through in an attempt to steal the points, but this time it's not to be.
Walls staying very, very quiet. Ken, outside of Hatting, much further away from his teammate. As overall a good opportunistic push from Lazarus. I like that VIVO KNGHT also stole that elimination point away from Lazarus. We're about to see phase 2 pop up. Another northern shift. It is northeast. But other than that, it's still a pretty heavy north shift, and I'd say a good kind of 15 to 20% of this circle is in water, so it takes away a lot of the land mass available for these players and teams. ATON 7 outside of Tap Mockdown on the southern hill of the area, just north of Paradise Resort, looking pretty healthy as Ints have Paradise locked down.
I am a little bit worried about how many teams are still out in the blue down to the south, though. You think that phase 1 is probably, I mean, it's the easiest circle to get into the majority of the time, and committing so much time down on the south is really not ideal. So I hope that, you know, they're going to be able to make their way in, not really get caught out by too many fights, but it's going to be a dangerous one. Ken, though, is in such a rough position over at this rock. I really do fear for him in the same way that Fears is probably fearing for his own life.
Okay, Kaseki take care of them by now. It seems like the push is coming through from Delta Stars onto Lazarus's position. A lead is going to go into FPP mode and get the elimination point onto Fears. Now Lazarus down to one player that's up, and Joey's knocked.
Elite tries to move through, barrel in hand. He knows that there is a player knocked down below, but hasn't been able to spot him. Maybe thinking that there's a second in a similar position. This could actually provide Lazarus the opportunity to return a little bit of fire, but I wouldn't expect it anytime soon. They're inside circle. You just got to try and survive at this point is the only thing you can really do. You don't really have any other options in terms of getting aggressive. It is just going to be a bit of a waiting game.
To make note of what you mentioned about kind of teams still in the blue, obviously you got to consider the heal strat is a thing in Sanhok games mobile. So as much as, yes, you are right, ideally you don't want to be in a blue. If the intention is to have one player at least pull off a heal strat, you're not really going to worry about being in the blue, especially for the first 2 to 3 circles.
Fair. It's I mean, we mentioned it yesterday, didn't we? If your initial strat is the heal strat, shouldn't you be a little bit concerned? Because it feels like it's one thing having it as a backup plan, but you never want it to be your plan A. So I think that these teams leaving it so late, if that is the strategy they want to go for, is not really a promising sign in my eyes.
No, not at all. Alpha 7, again, they started this game as a 3-person team. They lost a player to Polar Ace, so they're down to 2, and they pushed into boot camp. Although it's not ideal and I don't like it, it kind of makes sense because they're down to a duo. You kind of have the comfort of the buildings. It's going to be a bit of a stopgap as The blue zone of phase 2 is closing in. VIVO KNGHT still alive as a duo. Doing something similar as Alpha 7, rotating into CHABTAN. The comfort, the safety of the buildings will help keep them alive for at least a little bit longer.
We'll see how effective it really ends up being. I think Cello is just going to try and loot up a little more. No team's really going to cause an immediate threat, but I think we're all expecting that that zone does go off to that eastern island. It's not going to be over towards CHABTAN, so they are going to have to think about making a move. And I mean, I hate to say it, crossing that bridge, because, I mean, your options are you swim or you cross it. What's the better one there? Maybe, I mean, personally, I like swinging up to the north and maybe swimming across, but I can't see them really wanting to do that with Inco posted up.
You're dead right. The timing for a rotation or even a swim is too far gone. They're kind of nearly better off staying in the blue of phase 3 and then kind of hoping to make it across the bridge and into the edge of the circle. They can play on the lower ground of the Black Hole hillside. That's just on the very edge of the circle. But there's no guarantee that safety because you'll be coming in blind. You are dead right. It's going to be over on towards the eastern side inside this phase 3 shift. Paradise are still very heavily prioritizing this circle with the top mock hill locked down by ATON.
I am going to say something, though. That hat-in team, they could take a boat right here. Cow is still in. It's not outside
I think
of zone.
it's too late, though. I think it's too late, man.
I think if they were to get into a boat now, they could make it. Obviously, the boat is a little bit faster than a little bit slower, I should say, than the fast side of the zone, but they could definitely hook into Cow. The problem then becomes getting out of there, because it is a tough city. You really have one route, and that's up the hills to the east. But Honored Souls, they are just going straight through the middle, trying to get aggressive. Nice elimination coming out there from them. They're going to be able to flush that out, no problem. Honored Souls, 2 eliminations so far, not losing a player. Really good start from them.
Yeah, good start indeed, as ATON need to be very, very careful because their hill is big center part of this circle. Having too much of a spread is quite risky. Lucky for them, it's just ISURUS that's close by in terms of really able to breach and push this engagement. Inter are a little bit further down south, but they're in Paradise Resort, and going from Paradise Resort across the road onto that hill, even off the back of the knock, isn't going to be the easiest thing for INTZ to pull off.
Over here, now being held out by Honored Souls. You can see Myth was actually able to get the knock there. Beautifully done. It was the zone who took down that initial player, so he's doing everything he can to try and confirm it, get that elimination point, round it up to a nice, even 4 points to kick things off. He's pushing through, and I'd be very surprised if he doesn't get it now. The problem is, obviously, out in the blue, sure, he's got plenty of meds, but you don't want to be out there any longer than you really have to, because it kind of forces you to play edge in this zone, which, I mean, it's a hit or miss strategy, isn't it? Some teams, obviously, very good at playing edge, sweeping through, going for the eliminations, while some definitely prefer to be in the center, and I think that seeing how HS handle this is and how they're able to either net more points or potentially fall apart. We'll see which one that is, and I think it'll give us a good read on their playstyle.
INTZ, like I said, still in Paradise Resort. What I do like, and normally I'm not a fan of kind of staying in Paradise Resort this late into the game, but they do have 2 players outside of the walls of Paradise on a kind of higher ground overlooking that more central part of the circle, so at least they're grabbing information around them for the time being. It is still only phase 3 as BULUC, CHABTAN come down from the boot camp hills, and they don't know what hit them. Is XSET Polo G gonna be able to get a double knock and a couple of elimination points? Well, Molly goes through and he's gonna get knocked.
That is a tricky position to try and play out of, being caught out in the open like that, but you think that the rest of XSET were going to be here to provide some support, which so far I mean, they just haven't been able to do. It's a solo here. It should be already over. You'd think that, okay, we have an idea. There's a player on this wall. Let's go and pinch him. But it hasn't been a case. Sure, the nade landed close and was able to do a little bit of damage. Now, though, Fernan has a perfect read on where that second player is. Gets the damage. In comes the jump shot. Hit fire. All it takes is one more, maybe two more bullets. And there it is. XSET are just getting wiped apart right now. Fernan is single-handedly ripping them limb from limb as the nade is going to come through in an attempt of connecting, but Vernon's onto it. He jumps away. He's taken away half his health, but the UMP is there. The drop shot, not enough, and XSET exiting the lobby out in 12th position. And for a team of that caliber, they are going to be very upset.
Yeah, they should be happy with that at all. Fernan just finessed them big time. That was a 1v4 without a shadow of a doubt. Fernan has kept BULUC CHABTAN's dream alive in the second game of the day. Clinic of how to clutch up in just the right moments. Unfortunately, end up going down because I believe it was Alpha 7 swung on through to get the final elimination point. But now, Swagon, last player up, gonna have to deal with loops.
See what he's able to make happen out of it, but it's going to be a tricky one. Saz is here for Delta Stars, working his way through as Relin just laying there, tries to throw out a pre-nade. That actually looked fairly close to the Delta Stars player, but it's not enough to convert into a knock just yet. In the end, though, VK do fall out in 10th. It is a nade that is the final nail in the coffin. Poetic almost after nearly getting one of his own.
Indeed, indeed. Interacting very quickly to the next circle shift that went over to the west and move to the compound just shy of Paradises, or as a full squad. They have allowed now Loops to play in on the outside hills of Paradises, or be either way. They have the central compound as ATON still as a spread, looking for a bit of an engagement onto Honor Souls. But even if they get a knock, the rest of the team are really kind of too far away, in my opinion, to really take full advantage of that.
It's unfortunate. Let's see if they can maybe at least make something, you know, see if they can just salvage and get a couple points out of it. Inco, though, they are doing everything they can to salvage. We said the heal strat should never be plan A, but it is a viable plan B. And 27 first aid kits, I think that shows that maybe the plan is starting to be used. Asta taken down by the Molotov. Unfortunately, not able to pop the heal just in time, so we'll be falling. Lucky, still watching out for a little bit of info, but unfortunately looking at the wrong hillside.
Burn, baby, burn. Disco Inferno. And I think Asta just knew he was a little bit too deep. And look, that can happen sometimes. It can indeed. As ISURUS Koi is going to get a knock onto one of the players inside the buildings of Paradise, or at least it's going to allow the revive to come through.
Martino will be getting that player back up, but with so many footsteps around, you got to be a little bit cautious, knowing that there's players on top and below. Now Loops do start to throw out some nades of their own, not quite able to connect, but Asir is in real trouble. Martino falls, there's only one player left up. Chief is still there watching for the third party, goes to the 6x spray with the M4, but it's just not going to be enough right now. The AK is able to return the fire, and down he goes. That's Nova out in 9th position. Asir is barely remaining in it with a player not. Loops are still not letting the pressure off, though. Menor comes in, goes to pre-fire, and it works out almost perfectly. ISG are out for the action. Just isn't stopping. Imperium Myth, no! I really thought he was going to come out on top of that one.
It's still not over, though, for Honored Souls, as Nino is going to have his back saved today. ATON, they had the hillside, but the second they lost that one player, they really lost the core of the fight, and they allowed Honored Souls to enter in and get the squad wipe. More importantly, Honor Souls is going to get that player back up and stay as a 3-person team. Delta Stars also keeping on strong on the western side as the center's up. Even though they have a full squad, it's going to be very tough for them to enter their circle from the southwest.
I don't think there's any easy way into this one right now unless you're dead center. you're in real trouble. Now, granted, Delta Stars do have themselves a nice little hillside to work with, but first, they're going to have to try and focus on INTZ. Fraggers is there with a nice little spray, but it isn't able to connect enough for the knock. Was only able to do a little bit of damage out of it. Now, though, as fire comes through from either side, I worry about Escanor's position. It seems like he maybe doesn't have the info. His team calling it out, but he just isn't even getting the chance to peek.
Delta Stars should be focusing solely on INTZ. They've already done too much work by allowing multiple players from INTZ to get across the road into the edge of the circle. It's going to be even harder for them because Loops did get a knock and elimination point onto Honor Soul, so they're feeling pretty damn confident.
This red zone battle, though, the nades going back and forth is not going to be an easy one to try and navigate. I think Delta Stars are pretty happy with it, though. They're just going to try and crawl their way in. The buggy, though, has given away a bit of an audio cue, so it may end up forcing Loops to go for a bit of a split, but with a player down, that's made a whole lot harder, though. The frag grenade comes out and takes down one of the INTZ players, so is now the time for Loops to push. It definitely seems like it. That's the second fall in. The zone's closing in. Big spray, though, to be able to return it. Loops taking some damage. In comes a bit of a heal strat. Escanar sending it in with the buggy. I have no idea what's going on. Maybe just trying to get a little bit of info for Elite.
That was so good for Xerox, because what he did was he chucked out a couple of smokes. He knew that he couldn't wait. He couldn't push on those smokes as quickly because he needed a way for them to bloom at the right time. So what he did was he peeked, he got a couple of shots off, he got a first aid off, and then he pushed across to get the revive. INTZ are still going strong as a full team.
That's us. More nades. That one's actually able to do a decent amount of damage, but not converted it into an elimination. You can see Alpha 7, our top team at the moment, just pulling off the heal strat, and they will inevitably fall. Only 5 teams left up. Elite not going to be left to support his, as he will be getting flushed out as well. It leaves Delta Stars with only 2 players left up. Fragger's just laying prone. It's such a dangerous position. He hears the shots all around. Escanor throwing out some nades, but they're just not able to connect. Dishonored Souls sneaking in. 9 eliminations so far, but starting to release the pressure a little bit as they just try to work their way in all the way.
Release the pressure, release the Kraken, unload on your opponents left, right, and center. Honored Souls staying up as a 2-person team. Chief getting knocked down onto his knees, still able to get information, but it's not going to be easy. Instinct go down, so a bit of space has been created on the southern side of the circle.
Now, though, HS up on the north with only 2 players. They're at a bit of a disadvantage, but Delta Stars still having a bit of success with 2 themselves. Myth is now the only player left up for Honored Souls, and as the vehicles come through, makes you think they've got a read, but Myth is able to just completely turn it around and get himself a knock as the vehicle run over comes out and eliminates Myth. Now it's down to just 2 teams left up, 2 players left from Loops as Escanar tries to survive here for Delta Stars, but only really a rock to work with. He's going to have to rely on Fraggers here to sneak up prone and get a little bit more info. He does open up with the UMP, nothing being converted. Skadosian looks over to the side, though. Nicely done to be able to find the player. He goes for the second. Can he convert it? Yes, he can. And in the end, it's Loops that get themselves a chicken dinner. Much deserved. And for Loops, much needed.
Much needed indeed. And I couldn't have hit the nail on the head better. It was deserved. They played cool, calm, and collected. They third-partied in around Paradise Resort to get that kind of overall double squad wipe between Nova and ISURUS, and then it became a lot easier for them. They then control that kind of southeastern pocket, was able to pick up an elimination point on the Honored Soul, so that slowed them down. They put a lot of pressure on the INTZ, and despite INTZ putting up as much of a fight as they could, probably more than they should have had in terms of the space they were provided, in the end, Loops prevailed, and they created a space on the south side to close out this game.
I don't know about you, Imperium, but I'm going to have to go back and watch the map feed again, just so I can see how the hell Loops were able to even get into that zone, because they were fighting over at that two-story building up near Paradise, which is very tricky to get out of. And then they had to cross over the road to get onto this hillside, which it feels like shouldn't have been possible. I'm not sure whether it was just good smoke usage or whether it was a case of, okay, let's just send it now and hope that no one looks.
Yeah, I think there's an element of lucky time, but also good intuition with the fact of they would have been able to use the high ground across the road to at least scout their way through. And you're dead right. I definitely will be looking back on the map feed to get an idea of how it played out and how LOTUS were able to cleanly make their way across that road onto the southeast side. Inco healing up to get themselves, I believe, either a top 3 or top 4, so they won't be unhappy with that.
Absolutely not. Really nicely done to be able to find that final elimination. Not often you see a player able to take down 2 with that much ease, but really impressive from Loops. Let's look at the scores for that game, and after the chicken dinner, that's 29 points for Loops, 22 for Delta Stars. So 2 teams that were definitely, I don't want to say struggling, but weren't maybe a top contender with really good performances. And we mentioned about how important it was going to be to close that gap. But the downside is Alpha 7 got 8 points still that game.
Normally, we don't see this kind of points distribution on the Sanhok game. Traditionally, a Sanhok game will be kind of like a 23 to 25 point chicken dinner, right? And then it's a mixed bag of elimination points spread between the top 5, top 6. But this is a very top heavy result with the top 3 teams getting 34 points. That's like over half of the lobby, right? Between the top 3, and much deserved game between Honored Souls, Delta Stars, and Loops Esports. Despite Inco getting themselves 6 placement points, it was the lack of elimination points, I believe, for the second game in a row, if I'm not mistaken. Or was that INTZ? No, yeah, because Inco weren't playing in the first game. But either way, no, they were. They won the first game. What am I saying? But either way, Inco, it was unfortunate they didn't get more points.
They don't hire us from memories, let's put it like that.
Bro,
really impressive game all around from so many of those teams. I do worry, though, teams like Knights, Lazarus, XSET, the hopes for a lot of people are still letting things slip. Even Polar Ace, who had a fairly decent performance in game number 1 in terms of the aggression, only able to get 1 elimination that match. And I'm going to say it again, half of the lobby eliminated by 3 teams.
Yeah,
more than half,
pretty wild.
Actually,
pretty wild. It's not something you see too often, as I said, in Sanhok, but it's certainly a bit of a change of pace. 2 games, 0 points. Can definitely understand why you're worried. Well, let's look a little bit deeper into the stats of the chicken dinner winning team in the hands of Loops. 13 knocks, 14 elimination points, 2100 damage. That's a clinic, chunks.
Yeah, and I'm a little bit surprised to see so little smoke usage. I assume that was how they crossed, but I guess maybe vehicles or something was probably the way they made it across in the end. But really well traveled there from Loops to be able to immediately come off a fight and then realize that, okay, we're in a good position to go and take center circle. That's something they did. So whoever's their IGL, credit to them for being able to stay focused like that. Really, really impressive. But they're not the only ones that were able to pick up a lot of numbers, although obviously one player maybe standing out above the rest for this match.
MVP of the game, Cardo's on 6 elimination points, 737 damage. That return on investment, he didn't waste any time at all. Any damage he dealt, he made sure to convert it into either a knock or elimination point. You can't argue with that. And only 145 damage. Once again, it's not much, and I very rarely touch upon it, but the less time you need to heal, the more time you're able to be proactive, build on the momentum of a previous engagement, and then lead your team to victory. And it's kind of what we've seen from Loops.
Oh, wow. Loops taking all of the top spots right there. Really impressive to see. And it's really just 2 players fighting for it, isn't it? Pulling a lot of weight. And it shows that all it takes is 1 or 2 players to really pop off and it can boost your game so much. Obviously, I'm not kind of dismissing the other two players that are on the squad, but when you've got two players that are just on form and popping off, it's hard to stop a squad like that, even if the other two are maybe just playing a mediocre game. Just having a strong performance from the other two players is able to pull you up. And I got to say, I know the point you're going to make right now. It wasn't a mediocre game from the other two players either.
Yeah, because they have to be able to enable Cardos and Toiko to be that leader, to be those kind of two frontline players to get the damage, to get the elimination points. So, indeed, it is very much a team effort, and you could say it was a very loop-the-loop game for Team Loops.
I like that one. It's after the cheese puns yesterday. I've got you a bit more creative, haven't I?
Yeah, just a little bit. Now, obviously, the American audience won't really understand. Loop the Loop, by the way, is the name of an ice cream in the UK and Ireland.
Oh, is it? I thought you meant like a roller coaster.
Oh no, I was talking about the first thing that came into mind was an ice cream, but yeah, I didn't even think of actually the thing on a roller coaster. Jesus Christ.
I feel like every time we try and make a pun, it always comes back to food somehow. But you know what? These guys are going to be feasting on a chicken dinner tonight. As now Alpha 7 out in first. The heel strat, though, not really super effective. Sure, they were able to net themselves a decent number of points, but in terms of growing that lead in the way they would have hoped, that was not the one for them.
No, not at all, and it kind of keeps Inco Gaming somewhat close. Lazarus have dipped it just a little bit. It's not outside the realms of possibility, but I would like to have seen them kind of build on the momentum of overall their results across the board and be able to close that gap. But it wasn't meant to be after the second game. INTZ looking good. Loops have jumped up to 5th. Off the back of that chicken dinner, and now they're only 2 points behind INTZ. Knights still in 13th, but they are much closer to the likes of Black Dragons and Delta Stars. Delta Stars looking a lot healthier after that strong Sanhok result.
Yeah, I do worry about the kind of drop-off, though. We spoke about it a lot, but it seems to be growing. Lazarus are in between two packs right now. They can either be with the top 3 teams, or they could drop down and very quickly become a middle-of-the-pack team if a couple of the squads have strong performances right now. So that's going to be an interesting one to watch, see if INTZ Loops are going to be able to close up that gap even further, maybe even make it a bit closer in terms of the top 3. But you know what? That's game number 2 out of the way. That's Sanhok down. We've still got 3 more to go this evening. So we are going to take a very short break, but we will be back in just a couple of minutes with game number 3. Sanhok is down, at least for now. Next up is going to be Erangel. We have a bit of rest, it feels like. Erangel definitely not as big as a lot bigger than Sanhok, so a lot more space for the teams to work with, but I'd expect the action to pick up relatively quick yet again, Imperium, because it is really not slowed down yet. Every team is really giving everything to this match.
They say bigger is better, Chunk, so heading on to Erangel, we're hoping for better things across the board. In the first Erangel game of the day, there was a couple of ping pong shifts that certainly didn't make it easy for these teams, so hopefully there's a little bit more of a settlement. There's 9 times out of 10 going to be at least one hard shift, but in what we tend to like to see is kind of hard shifts in one direction, because even though they're a bit of a pain in the ass, at least there's a level of familiarity or consistency in one certain direction, so hopefully we do get that kind of ending.
Speak for yourself. I love these ping pong circles, sending teams back and
God damn
forth.
it.
We will be sending Group C, though, out of the lobby for a little bit of a break. Call it a VOD review, call it whatever you want, but they will not be in it. That does take Inco out of the running, which means that there's a chance now for more teams to start closing that gap. Now for 7 to extend it.
Hopefully. Haven't really had a good start. I believe in game number 1, Alpha 7 got themselves... Okay, I was looking at the wrong one. I was wondering why. Alpha 7 got themselves in the first game 0 points, I think, or they weren't playing in the first game. But then in the second game, Alpha 7 got themselves 8 points, so it really wasn't kind of like the best game for them across the board. So hopefully with Inco out of the running, they can grab themselves a good result.
I will say, though, it feels like a lot of the time we talk about so-called salvage games and the fact that you really have to try and make the best out of a bad situation. And for Alpha 7 right there, they had a very, very rough situation to try and deal with, but to be able to salvage 8 points off of what was basically just a heal strategy, I'm pretty happy with that, and I think that going into the later games, when they do get back into the lobby, they're going to continue that momentum, maybe play a little bit more aggressive.
Trying to think. Interesting.
Seems like you've got some interesting thoughts going on. Let me hear them.
Well, no, I'm just a little bit confused, to be perfectly honest.
I feel that.
That's
I'm used to it.
Yeah, I'm definitely a little bit confused. But either way, the plane path is going from Military Island over to North George, so a bit of a tricky one if you want to get yourself over to the eastern side of the map. Early vehicle usage is going to be important, but that, of course, in turn runs the risk of maybe losing a player if a team recognizes that. Either way, if you're going to split and head over to the... If you're going to drop and head over to the east, you normally want to drop as a full squad, so there's just that little bit of extra security.
Yeah, you don't want to be taking any risks as a bit of a split, so especially in a plane path like this, especially if teams were to go over to the west, for instance, and kind of go for a spot loot strategy, it's always a good idea to try and keep a few players close together so you're not really risking someone going off and dying on their own, which I know is usually me, Imperium. I'm used to it.
Oh my god, I'm such an idiot. So basically, no, because I thought that I had the results from game 1, but I actually didn't. It must have been a result from another game, and I was wondering why Alpha 7 weren't kind of showing up in the results, etc. So I was massively confusing myself. Either way, we're looking at a Military Island finish. Phase 1 is prioritizing the island. You already had like 4 teams drop in the island based off the playing path. So when more join, things are going to get pretty action-packed in the island right from the start of this game.
I love these melee base circles. I know a lot of the teams will hate them, but if you're a team that lands down at melee base, it's really a test for you, because you usually get those teams that land somewhere like melee base. They're kind of an edge team. They don't usually get super aggressive early on. but it feels like you don't really have a choice in that matter when you get a circle like this. Everyone is going to be coming towards you, and you have to prove to be an adaptable squad, and you can't really just be maybe a one-hit team that likes to play it slow, working from the edge when you've got the time to think. You have to be able to react quickly, so I think those teams that do land down at Millibase are really going to be tested now.
Yeah, they are indeed, and you can see Knights are at least going to take advantage of that. Finally, a game where they don't get 0 points. No judge, wink, wink. Knights kick off their game 3 on a good note.
I mean, we're hoping for it for them. It definitely feels like they're a squad that just have so much potential, but at least so far tonight, we haven't seen it. We definitely saw signs of it yesterday, though, and that's really what I'm holding out for them, to get a nice, aggressive game and started early and then keep that momentum up, because it feels like once it starts, it just doesn't stop for Knights.
Yeah, Alpha 7 did play the first game. They got themselves 2 points. In the second game, they got themselves 8 points. So that's 10 in 2 games for them. XSET hang on to the mainland coastline position, looking for the players of ISURUS. They're not going to find it. They lost J-Way, so they're down to a trio. This game is going to be a little bit trickier for them because of it.
Losing a player early for XSET, really not ideal. They have not had the best sort of luck tonight. They have really had a rough time, and I hope that maybe they can start to turn it around this game. As I mean, the circle's down at Millibase. XSET are in a really good position to start making that push very early on, but they're going to need themselves a boat or something unless they want to be swimming or be crossing that bridge, which is, it's a death sentence most of the time, especially with how many teams are posted up on the east.
Although, as it happens, BULUC CHABTAN made their way across. Rise have made their way across. Now, BULUC CHABTAN definitely more heavily on their split, which is really weird. Oh, sorry, more heavily split on their rotation of the military island. And even one of the players, Alien Kid, is going deep inside the military base. They lose one. Marion is still across the north. So honestly, I don't get what BULUC CHABTAN were doing with that rotation. If you're going to send it early into military island in this kind of circle, you want to do it as a full squad.
Lazarus, though, they don't need a full squad to start getting aggressive. They just need AJAT there to start making some noise. That's exactly what he does. He isn't really able to convert it into any points just yet as he's hopping into the water. This is a brave mood. If there was a player over on that kind of ramp area he wasn't aware of, there could be some serious trouble for Lazarus right now. So a big gamble, but they've got the info onto this squad, so I can't blame them for moving this aggressively.
Yes, ISURUS swings around. Martino's being put under pressure between Fears and Kaseki, and now in through the crates, Fears is going to get the pre-fire shots off. Firms the elimination point, and now ISURUS, I was going to say down to 1 player. Now they're down to 0. They're out of here.
Not the way you want things to go for them, but a team always has to fall first. That's just the nature of PUBG Mobile, but it's never nice to see a team that's maybe a bit lower down. You maybe hope that it is going to be a top squad that ends up going down early, just to keep the hope alive for those lower down teams that they can start to close that gap a little bit more. 8 on 7, though, are going to be moving through. It's Lucky getting aggressive on the upstairs. Team QUESO are just completely solidified into this one building. I'm not sure whether I like it or not, because obviously 4 players, 1 building, you've got every angle covered, but the problem becomes, okay, what if 87 can get a bit of a pinch going on you? They've got every angle covered on you, and they don't have to peek. They can just wait you out.
Yeah, I don't. I hate the fact that Team K is 4 players in that one building. Yes, it has an upstairs and a downstairs, but you can see they get no information other than maybe 1 to 2 windows downstairs on any player from 8 on 7 on that flank angle, and Lucky is going to get a knock onto Nitsu.
Nicely done. Can he follow it up with a second? Not just yet, but the suppressing fire coming through. Anyone peeking that Wall is going to be in for a scary surprise. Milos still keeping an eye out. Here's the player from Team Queso coming around the back, but the reactions are just a little bit slow. The micro Uzi has hardly any ammo left in it. Going to be forced switch over to the Mini 14, but just not going to be enough as the Team Queso player comes down the staircase, does the damage as Asta with a beautiful spray to do so much of his own.
It's still not over yet, though. ATON 7. Yes, they do once again have the body disadvantage, but I think they've done a hell of an effort. But Asta runs and punches in the air with his gun not out, locked and ready to load it. He gets knocked, and lucky he's left on his own inside the shack. Team Queso, they're going to cheese it through and finish this fight off.
Here come the cheese puns, the first of many, I'm sure. A7, though, some nice M16 shots landing, but not quite connecting close enough as they would have hoped for. But still, it's a sign of confidence from Alpha 7 here after a pretty unfortunate start. Let's hope they don't have to bust out another heal shot, but it's looking a bit more likely as they lose their first player. Bearing in mind they only had 3 in the first place, they're down to just a duo.
Right. Trying to do what they can to keep the dream alive for his side. And Alpha 7, though, on the other side, you could technically say they kind of have more to lose. Because Trey and the rest of the Polar Ace squad, they're kind of down and last. So they can't really go much further in the leaderboard. Whereas Alpha 7 can give the opportunity to Inco to get back into the first place spot if they go down early.
See if they can maybe survive a little bit longer, but I feel like all the neutral observers right now who maybe don't have a stake in it, and maybe even everyone who supports a team that isn't in the top 3, is just praying right now that Alpha 7 do end up falling to Polar Ace, and we see that bottom versus top flip almost in terms of this fight, just to give other teams a chance to catch up. Obviously, Alpha 7, they've only got 1 elimination so far, which means only 1 point so far salvaged from this game. But as they heal up, you can see them getting ready to take another fight. Carrillo does hear a player close, so stops his heal for just a moment. It feels like you see the boost, you see the heals, it's only a matter of time until they start to push, start to get aggressive. But as we hop on board with Rise, it's going to be Nunes, the first to fall at the hands of Lazarus.
On top of the tower, Lazarus rotated pretty early on in this game, and Rise a little bit late to the party. And they're gonna be the ones to fall down for it. They do still have 1 to 2 players alive, but either way, the damage has been done, and they're gonna walk away with their tail between their legs.
Not the best for them. Alpha 7 continuing to take a couple shots towards Polar Ace, but unfortunately, it's just not happening for them. They're not able to connect. However, Carrillo now does start to open up some shots of his own. It's Swagian on the side who finishes off the job, and that's a Polar Ace out in 14th position. Really not ideal as Raj try their best to defend themselves. They are having to retreat pretty quickly now from that observer tower.
Okay, so there is still the mainland in play. That's something to think about, right? I would say this isn't the most secure shift that maybe the teams who have themselves locked down in Military Island would like. Team Queso, down on the south side, took out on 7. Only 1 casualty fallen because of it. They're going to be able to play on those south road side position. Mythic under a lot of pressure.
Let's see how these teams are going to be able to return to that. Sorry, perform under that pressure, I should say, as Mythic is just going to be laying low. It actually doesn't look to me like Lazarus really want to push this. Of course, they want to get players down below, get as much zone control as possible. Completely understandable from them, but opting not to go for that solo, they come back to punish them if they're not actively aware and keeping an eye out in case someone tries to sneak up.
I'm in 2 minds about that 2-2 split between the observer tower and the compounds down that hill, very much somewhat in the center of, if not this circle, then most likely the next circle. I just don't know if there's going to be any real support because the team's on top of the observer tower, the players on top of the observer tower. Do you really need 2 players there? Yeah, okay, they might be afraid that one of the Rise players could be a little bit outside of it. But to me, you don't need 2 players up there. 1 will be enough. You have 3 controlling the buildings down by the side of the road and that support player looking from above.
Now the question becomes, though, how does Maiden survive? Black Dragons have completely surrounded him. Sure, he's got the UMP. He might be able to find a knock, but no. Talent is there, ready to punish. That's going to be BC out in 13th position as LOTUS start to take some fire of their own. It's long range, but can you blame them? They managed to get themselves a chicken dinner. They've got to be feeling confident.
They are indeed. Influence Rage on the western edge of the circle. By the way, they've VIVO keyed very close in front of them, and VIVO keyed kind of seem to be prioritizing the rotation a little bit further into the circle. Not quite away from Influence Rage, though, for the time being. And Black Dragons looking a lot better in this game, it has to be said. 2 elimination points so far, and looking for more into Team QUESO.
Can they make it happen, though? Nicholas definitely not afraid to make some noise down in the Millie base. Fairly central for the time being. It just becomes a waiting game for that X zone to pop. We're still a couple minutes away from that as it barely starts to move. Nicholas just moving up. It seems like Martins has realized that there is a player down below, so he's playing a bit more aggressively, but needs to be careful. A lot of nades have been landed. Does spot the body, but a little bit too late, as in the end he will end up falling, but is able to take 1 in return. Now Nicholas is here to provide some support, looking out for that Team QUESO player in the vehicle that's going to try and move through. The shots start to land. That's a little bit of damage.
Wow.
Not enough to convert into a knock, but still severely hindering QUESO's ability to fight as soon as they pulled up here. The nade comes through from Talents. It might just be close enough. They know where the player was knocked. They know where he's going to be getting revived, but it seems like that rock above is just providing enough cover. Talents has been spotted. Bye-bye says bye-bye to his teammates. Has to turn away as Talents come over the top. Absolutely tears them apart. Moving through further. Black Dragons, 2 players left up. They have the read onto QUESO, and it is all over for QUESO. Black Dragons starting to pick up the momentum. This is what I wanted to see.
1 mistake by Team QUESO. The trade came through from a distance, and that is certainly not a bad thing. But it was the fact that when Kuna repositioned, you went for the revive. That's an absolute no-no, because what that does is it leaves Team QUESO with 1 player up. If Kuna either stays in the backline or pushes forward to fight with Bye-Bye, they have 2 players being aggressive. Whereas when you go for the revive, you're asking for the time for Black Dragons to push in and do exactly what we saw them do. So I hope you're not feeling too blue after that one, and you can come into the next game looking a bit stronger, Team QUESO.
Fingers crossed. Honor Soul's just going to be holding this position right now. Maybe banking on it going up to the north a little bit. I know it's a very unlikely thing to happen, but it's a potential, and if you are the team that's able to get the read onto that, you're going to be the ones to reap the rewards. So guess what, Imperium? I said it wasn't likely to happen, and that's exactly what it does. You said it was 100% a milli zone this game.
Whoa!
What has happened?
When did I say it was 100%?
I think off that, as soon as phase 1 popped, you said, like, oh, this is a Millie Island game. And you know what? I was on side. I thought that was the case.
Okay. In my defense, I did definitely allude to the fact that it was going to be a military island finish. But I don't think I said the word 100%.
I don't think
so.
Those lines.
Okay,
Either way,
you know what?
we
Fair
definitely
enough.
thought that it was going to be a Millie-based game. I don't think there was anyone who would have expected to shift up north. But you know what? I'll give these teams their credit. To be able to read something like that is really a sign of how much they've played the game, because I never would have guessed it.
No, I wouldn't have at all. And I did kind of allude to, at least on the previous circle shift, how it wasn't the most secure shift for the teams that had locked down Military Island, and this one is a massive face for them, and it means that it's going to be a bit of an opposite bridge pass as compared to normal, where teams are going to be rotating from the military island into the mainland across the bridge. Black Dragons quick to respond, except waiting on the coastline of the military island. They are able to get a little bit of information across the way onto the likes of loops, and maybe waiting and biding their time for the next circle to shift up could give them a little bit more freedom to move across to the mainland.
I mean, XSET are in the zone right now. They're not in the blues, so I think they're really banking on teams down to the south having to make that swim across and not having vehicles and just waiting for them there. Knights, though, putting in work. They've just found an elimination over towards INTZ. They're going to continue making the cross. They do need to be careful, though, because there is still that solo player left up, and he is looking to punish the 6x on the DP from that player. Beautifully done. The only one left up for INTZ. Can he convert it over into a flush? Going into the FPP mode. That's how you know those are serious nades. Talents throwing out some nades of his own now, switching over to the M4. Nicholas is there for support, trying his best to run over the player. Nearly does, but unfortunately not able to. Ends up conceding a lot of damage and goes down because of it. That's why you don't get too overconfident, Imperium.
Yeah, and Black Dragons, not just overconfident, but I would say to an extent, tunnel vision on that area, maybe thinking like it was all good to push and not recognizing that there could easily be more players from the opposing team hanging around that area. And that's exactly what Influence Rage have done. The bridge camp coming through. Black Dragons are going to rethink how they get out of military island. Like I said, for XSET, like the Lazarus, even to an extent, waiting for the next phase to pop up could be just as viable as moving in super early on this rotation.
Well, boy, hops in the vehicle, is going to be making a move about now. Influence Rage, though, they are going for that western bridge, which means they are going to be cooking in the blue for a little bit longer. That shift is going to work kind of perfectly for them. Hard over to the west, but half of it's still water, Imperium. There is going to be very little space left for these teams to play, and the one or two compounds that are inside zone are going to be hot commodity, I should say. Some high-value real estate in that area that everyone is going to be scrapping for.
Indeed, it's going to be hot property right on the market, just like the global housing market. Nothing available and selling for overinflated prices. But it doesn't always come down to the hot property, right? If Knights can lock down the hillside that's on that western side of the circle, it could very easily be their chicken dinner, their house sold in this game 3.
It feels like every team is looking for a different thing when it comes to how they want to play the game and what position they think is best. Sure, you can have one or two teams all saying, oh, this compound's the best because it's hard cover, but seeing teams that are actually playing ridge lines and cliffs and feeling confident with them is a really good sign. Lazarus are going to be going for the heal, just about able to get it off, but it's not really worth anything right there, as Menor is going to push his way through and eliminate the rest of Lazarus. 9 teams now remain. Loops with 4 eliminations after a chicken dinner. Pretty good way to start the match, and hopefully looking to wrap it up like this as well.
They should be able to get the revive until it's much closer to the eastern edge of the circle, so that's a good thing. And I thought Lazarus might wait a little bit longer to really try and play into the circle off the back of the rotation on the eastern bridge, and unfortunately they presumed the worst. XSET, instead of rotating across the way, they're going for a swim along with the likes of Rise, Black Dragons, and that should allow Knights to hopefully do a little bit of fishing, reel them in, and pick up some extra elimination points.
Knights, though, in a really tricky position. You can see that Black Dragons and XSET just chilling in the water together. There's not really much that can actually happen here because the boat's destroyed. Both players are doing everything they can to try and survive from Knights and Influence Rage looking up on that cliffside. So there's not really anything that any of these players could do. They can't punch in the water. They can't shoot, for anyone who's maybe newer to PUBG Mobile. So they just kind of have to look at this enemy that they can't engage with and hope that they somehow die first. And that they're able to sneak their way through. So Knights are definitely going to be looking out for that as the zone shifts. So much water still inside. It's pulled hard to the west as, I mean, Knights are just dead center. I'm not sure whether you saw that, Imperium, but XSET and Black Dragons sharing a boat for cover. That's something else.
It is something else now. This becomes a lot trickier for Knights than it initially looks, because you kind of go, okay, the circle has shifted in their favor, but now they become the focus for the likes of Honored Souls, Influence Rage. Now, the best thing they can hope for is that the likes of Honored Souls and Influence Rage take each other out. What is good is that they have started with a knock onto one of the Honored Soul players, which will continue to suppress them. A second one comes through, Honored Souls nearly taken out.
Chico starts to move his way up over the ridge. Knights want to make the most out of this position, but if HS can come through and do some damage, it will just tear them apart. Is Chico I can't tell whether Chico is stuck or whether he's just choosing not to move. He does end up vaulting, being able to get away, but the nade landed close, and that's unfortunate. He's going to be going down to Alpha 7 instead. Knights now on a bit of a salvage mission to try and keep this one going. They are pinched between two squads. I don't see it going too well unless they can quickly get themselves a knock onto one of these teams.
I don't know exactly what happened to Chico specifically, but the slight negative on Chico's, on Knight's parts, is that they maybe have kind of split themselves too much to take more than one fight at once. And to me, they should be focusing on one team at once. You can't really push on Honored Souls and Influence Rage at the same time. I know it was Alpha 7 to get the knock. Either way, a little bit of a mistake there does put them down to 3 players.
Sanhok still there with the DP. Long-range spray to be able to get himself that flush. It's an extra elimination point, 8 so far for Knights. It doesn't really matter how they end up finishing right now. They've got themselves a decent number of elims, so should be happy on the points front. Obviously going to keep looking for more. With Black Dragons going down, it will get themselves an extra placement out of it. As I mean, it's just mayhem around this zone right now. Everyone is fighting for this smallest cliffside on the water. I don't know how these teams are going to try and make it in. Alpha 7, they tried to go for the heal strat. It just wasn't enough. Knights really running things, but with so many solos and duos around to stay aware of and a player missing, they can only cover so many angles.
Jesus Christ, Chunks, look at that circle shit. We've got more water than land inside this phase 6, and Knights continue to be the focus for all of these remaining teams, but I gotta say, it's looking a lot safer for them because it's incredibly flat around them. Coops takes a lot of damage, but he does stay alive. Down to only 4 bandages.
The worry here is if they don't have the meds and they are taking team fight after team fight, or maybe even just taking a little bit of damage, it's going to be detrimental to them. Coops does go down, and this is the opening that Influence Rage were really looking for. Lil Boy going to be running up. Skowski come in as well, using the high ground for cover. Knight's just chilling inside this dip, hoping for the best, but I think now Influence Rage are feeling confident. They want to push through. They still need to be careful of that solo XSET player, though, yet to make his way through.
Honored Souls could inadvertently help Knights, because as they've kind of gone back down to the edge of the cliff, they are less noticed by Influence Rage, right? When you look at the land level, Influence Rage are more looking towards the direction of Honored Souls than they are towards Knights.
Xenox, that's the nade. Is it close enough? It does the damage, but can't convert it to a knock just yet. Knights with a nice little pinch. The TPP point of view being used to its full advantage now by Xenox to get the read. Pull it out to the rest of the squad. Kalzagi, though, moves up, and there it is. Down goes one. Xenox does what he can to try and trade, but it's just not there. Only able to do damage. And we mentioned it before, Imperium. There is no meds on the side of Knights right now. There's 5 first aids in one of their back pockets, but there's no way of getting that up to the hill, even if you do get the revive.
Honored Souls being a little bit quieter than Knights would probably like, sending an aid a little bit further down the side. It's the shots from Kowalski to get the second knock on to Tensa now. Just one player left for Knights on it, so start to make a move.
Azagi still up top, trying his best to get the revive, but these Molotovs are just landing all around. It only takes really one more, and that'll take down 2 players from Influence Rage. It looks like it's going to be the gun, though, that eliminates one more. Now, Federal needs to get himself the heal off as his teammate provides a little bit of cover. Not really sure what he's going to be able to do out of it. Sanhok's still aware of the XSET player down below, but having to constantly switch that attention because you know the Influence Rage, it only takes one push over that ridge and Sanhok's is done.
I would actually say the last remaining player of XSET is more of a threat to Xenox than likes of Influence Rage and Honored Souls, but now Honored Souls playing down on the lower parts of that cliff. They're getting much closer, and Xenox goes down.
Down go Knights. That is the end of them. XSET still with the solos. Influence Rage focus all of their attention onto HS. Federal there to finish off the job. Wants to deny as much info as possible. This is the time, though. XSET going to start coming off. Law goes down, but in the end, XSET eliminated in third. You'll take that one, especially if he does end up bleeding. Federal, though, spots the player down below. Tries to go for a couple more rounds. Looting up, wants to maybe get some heals. As that might just be the ending that we have to face right now. If Influence Rage aren't confident enough dropping down this hill, it may just become a bit of a heal battle.
One of the Honor Soul players is outside the circle, so it does give Influence Rage not only the body advantage, but positional advantage.
The high ground is so important in a matchup like this, but all it takes is 1 foot in the wrong place. You drop down and, well, it's all over, so a lot of pressure on Influence Rage. It looks like Law, though, he actually wants to drop down alongside Federal. They've still got the player up above, providing that pressure, providing support, but the flank works out perfectly. Big spray comes through to take down Sammy, and I think that's pretty much everything for Honored Souls, unless Mid can somehow make the comeback of the century, but he runs out of ammo, runs out of health, and it's Influence Rage who get themselves that chicken dinner for game number 3.
They were put under a little bit of pressure bit into that late game by Knights, but again, I think the lack of one team at a time for Knights allowed Influence Rage to get themselves back up as a full squad. They still ended up losing a player, I believe, Little Boy at the hands of Honored Souls, but at the end of the day, the damage had already been done onto Knights at that point, and Influence Rage had turned that into a controlling position on the cliff side of the mainland.
I love zones like this, man. It was so entertaining to watch. It really is the beauty of PUBG Mobile, isn't it? I don't think you get zones like this in any other game that are just so awkward for these teams. But if you take a gamble, it pays off. Knights are one of those teams, if I remember correctly, that did end up anchoring to the north fairly early on. So credit to them for being able to capitalize. And the same can be said for XSET. They really did bank on that northern side and the northern shift. For a team that has struggled tonight, to be able to make it into third place with a couple of eliminations, that's a pretty big achievement. You just hope that they can continue to level that up to the standard we'd expect from them.
Influence Rage were coming into this game in a pretty good position in the overall standings, very close to, I think, the top 5. I believe they were in around 6th place, but either way, there was very little points between them, so now that should kind of allow them to really break into that top pack and get much closer to the top 3.
We'll see now as we look at the standings for that game. It's no surprise Influence Rage were able to steal the show. 29 total points, being able to get 14 eliminations and that chicken dinner. Very, very impressive. Yet again, though, the kills are a little bit all over the place when you look at the eliminations between teams. There are 1 or 2 squads that were able to sponge up a lot, but it really is top-heavy with the top 2 teams taking the majority. And outside of that, sure, there's a couple squads that managed to salvage some points, but, I mean, the bottom half of the leaderboard is just barren.
Well, definitely understandable in terms of the bottom half, between just the aggressive nature of these lobbies and the likes of ISURUS, who've proven to be very passive polarized. really not having no real direction and focus in these games. It was obvious that those kind of teams are going to go down early. The circle shifts did play into a bit of a spread in the elimination points, so with Alpha 7 picking up 6 before they went down. XSET, yeah, okay, they survived, but even Lazarus picking up 5 elimination points before they went down at the hands of Loops and then Loops following suit. That is really why the elimination points are spread out, because of those harsh circle shifts and what clearly looked like a military island finish, but then instantly pulled the rug underneath the feet of a lot of these teams.
Yeah, it was a surprise. I'm not really surprised to see so many of the bottom teams without a single point, because that's kind of the nature of a zone like that, isn't it? When everyone goes down into one position and then it shifts the opposite way, so many teams are going to get held out. So you can't hate on them too much for that, but I do want to see these squads step it up a little bit, because we only have 2 more games to go tonight, and if you're not able to really put in the work soon, those squads are going to struggle, because we are at the halfway point. If you're down in the bottom half of the leaderboard, you really have to wonder what more can these teams do at the bottom.
Yeah, exactly. Looking a little bit more closely into the stats of the winning team of this game. 2,000 damage, 20 nades, 25 smokes. It's the first game today where we've seen that kind of higher number of nades and smokes. And because of that open terrain by the coastline of the mainland, it makes sense why the utility was heavily prioritized by Influence Rage.
Yeah, and you know, when you're in a high ground position like that, when there's so many little dips and divots that just have individual players in, you have to throw out every nade you can, just in the hopes that it rolls into the right place. Because if you're a team like Knights right there, you're posted up, you're down a player, you're just going to chill in those rocks. You don't want to peek. You're going to be waiting for the info, and you're going to let a team like Influence Rage peek you.
Yeah.
The fact is, Influence Rage had enough nades. They realized they had the foresight, I should say, to really prepare for that, and being able to grab all of those nades really worked out well for them. I will say, though, looking at this from Knights, 5 eliminations, not a single assist, not really a team player right there, clearly.
Look, Coops is arguably the best North American PUBG mobile player currently. He is the star of his show for his team in the PMPL North America. Actually, as it happens, he's absolutely on fire with 36 eliminations so far and 31 knockouts, 6,000 damage. That obviously isn't much contextually, because I'm not giving any other players, but my point is, Coops is a man not to be messed with. And you know, if the team enables him, he technically doesn't have to be a team player in that regard, because the elimination points is team help enough.
Okay, so next time that we're playing together and I'm sponging up all the eliminations, then you're complaining, that's going to be my excuse.
Bro,
look, I'm just that good. I'm just a team player.
You normally do anyway, so it's fine. I'm used to it, bro.
Anyway, I'm sure they won't be arguing about Scoops picking up too many eliminations, too much damage, because it definitely helped them out. Let's not forget Sensor, though, because 3 eliminations as well, definitely helping stack them up for Knights. But of course, it's going to be Influence Rage, the winning team, that steal the majority of the eliminations that match, and well deserved, honestly. Really well fought from them to be able to fight through so many squads.
Yeah, it really was. Influence Rage really kind of picked things up as a team in that game, and even have the highest amount of distance traveled, because they did hang on to that military area for quite a while. They swung through that western side, and then of course they shifted back over to the mainland, controlled from the west, and got the job done. Influence Rage and Coops were the stars of the show in this game 3. Let's have a look at how it affects the overall standings.
Taking a look at the overall standings now, we will see who is in the lead. I think our producer may have unplugged his keyboard, so hopefully we can get that sorted as soon as possible. But I'd hazard a guess that Alpha 7 is still going to be up at the top. But at the same time, Influence Rage will be closing that gap. There it is, working their way into 4th place. Now between them and Lazarus, there is barely anything.
Yeah.
But Alpha 7 still just tearing away the lead. How can teams even compete right now? They are going to have to play out of their minds.
Well, they do have a game in hand over Inco. Just think about that for a sec. I believe it's the next game that Alpha 7 aren't playing. Let me just kind of absolutely confirm that. The next game is going to be game number 4. So Group D aren't going to be competing and Alpha 7 are in Group D. So the next game is going to be the focus for Inco to really take advantage of that and continue to put pressure onto Alpha 7.
Yeah, we will see how these squads are going to be able to do. Obviously, now with Alpha 7 taking a break out, it allows the opportunity for the teams a little bit lower down to start closing up that gap in our final 2 games of the evening. But they will be coming up shortly. Before that, we are going to take a very short break, but we'll be back in just a couple minutes with, I believe, a game of Sanhok. We are back, day number 4 of Season 4 of the Americas Elite League. For anyone just joining us, my name is Chunks. I am joined by Mr. Mobile himself, the one and only Imperium, out here putting in work, holding my hand through the Americas Elite League. Let's take a look over at the groups, though, because as you mentioned earlier, Imperium, we are going to be losing yet another group, and a whole new group is going to be coming in. I believe it's Group D going out this time, so we'll give teams the opportunity to start catching up with Alpha 7.
Yeah, Alpha 7, of course, like I mentioned before the start of the break, not playing in this next game, along with the likes of Lazarus, XSET, and loops. So that means that Lazarus are going to be put under a little bit of pressure. They're going to have to try and see where they lie coming into the final game, as Influence Rage may be looking to build off the back of a beautiful chicken dinner in the previous game.
Yeah, game number 4 now underway. Our final Sanhok of the evening. I'm going to be sad to see it go. I love the action, but I'll be honest, my voice could do with the rest.
Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from, because it tends to be pretty heavy going in terms of fight after fight after fight. Playing path, nothing really to worry about, and that regard, I suppose swing into the north is going to take a little bit of an extension, but it shouldn't affect too many of these teams. Polar Ace going to drop around KNGHT with Team QUESO. It's a bit of a heavy split. Z-Fan for Nova, a little bit close by. Seems like Polar Ace, at least in this final Sanhok game of the day, are playing as a full squad.
It's a positive, isn't it? I wonder how much of a difference it's going to make, though, as harsh as that sounds to say. Well, no, it feels like Polar Ace, even when they've had, you know, the advantage in situations, they have been really struggling. So I hope that it will make a difference. That's all I'm going to say about that one, I think.
Me too. Going a little bit heavy on his own, but the pre-fire shots are going to allow him to run rings around the players of Polar Ace. I think Polar Ace, also a couple of other players, don't have guns, so that's why KNGHT is running away, and like the shepherd with the sheep, just herding them into a corner where it's going to be a little bit easier for DK so to slay the beasts of Polar Ace.
We'll see. Tuna there with the nade in hand decides to switch over to the gun instead, close up the distance a little bit further. Trades coming through left and right as Team QUESO just efficiently wiping up Polar Ace. Still one player left. They're just picking him up. That's just BM at this point. I love to see it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I love it. It's a huge part of psychology. I don't get why Polar Ace, I don't know how much of a mistake it was, but I don't get, if it wasn't a mistake, why Salt didn't drop in KNGHT. You should know that Team QUESO drops on KNGHT, right? They've done it many, many times. You've fought in this area once again. If you're going to come into this game as a full squad, dude, sure, you make good use of it.
Yeah,
now,
and
you know,
it kind of goes back to what I was saying, doesn't it? Like, if you're coming in and you've had a rough few games, how much of a difference is a full squad going to be? And clearly, this time around, there wasn't really any difference, unfortunately, especially when you play that split. Maybe they just got used to the loot. Maybe they were just sad because they didn't have as much loot with 4 players. But I don't think it really makes difference because they're back in the lobby now anyway, so the loot really not going to have too much of an effect on this game.
Anyway. Phase 1's popped up. Knights, because there's no loots in this game, have Pineapple all to themselves, so it's going to be a little bit of an easier game for them to deal with. Of course, we're looking at a bit more of a Southwest Island inside this game number 4, but as we witnessed in the previous game, no guarantees. It could go back over to the mainland. Hell, it could still end up in the Northwest Island.
Fingers crossed. That's all I'm gonna say. If it does end up over on Diego's position, then I'm not gonna complain about that. I love the circles where teams have to suffer. I'm sorry. It's just I want to see them challenged. I don't want them to ever have an easy game.
You know what, man? You're a true caster. You really are. And you know, to tell you a little bit of a story, there's a former player called Zute. A very successful PUBG Mobile player over the last couple of years, but he transitioned into an analyst / caster role. And when he first started casting, he was kind of very sympathetic to the players when it came to the circle shifts and kind of wanted to see the best opportunities for the teams to kind of succeed, right? When it came to the circle shifts. But as time went on, he slowly started turning to the dark side. And now, is very much that kind of sadistic caster, like, yes, I want to see the destruction. I want to see the team suffer.
You know what? I think we've seen a lot of teams suffer it, especially in that last game. So maybe we should take it easy on them for this game. Because I think last game's like hard northwestern shift that nobody saw coming was maybe harsh enough on them. So I'll let them off for this one. We'll go easy on them.
Thank you, young Padawan Chunks. It is very much appreciated. Your empathy is heavily noted within the PUBG Mobile gods. Now, a good few teams are still outside the circle. Black Dragons on your screens right now are one of those teams hanging their hat in. They do have ESTORM close by. They got an elimination point onto ESTORM, but it's not just them. You have Delta Stars, ATON, Honored Souls, and Rise, although it's only just one of the Rise players, is all the far away on the northeastern side of this map.
I do wonder how those teams down around the river right now are going to try and play this one, because obviously after last game, I think everyone's learned that the circle is truly unpredictable. As much as people like to think they can read it, there's always going to be a situation where you just can't. And I think that those teams down on the river now do have a tough decision to make, with the last game probably weighing heavily on their mind in terms of which way do we play this. Are we going to hold the west? Are we going to hold the right? Are we going to maybe go for a split? But that could potentially expose ourselves. So I think if there is going to be a team that is a bit braver and anchors over on that northeastern side, I kind of want to see him get rewarded. But also, I wouldn't complain about a Pine finish or something where it is really right on the river.
And that leads me into a thought about Knights. Now, the sensible thing that they have done is rotate to the South Painan Hills, because that gives them information on the teams that have dropped down on that southwest side, and it gives them an element of information. But there's actually nothing wrong with staying in Painan on this kind of circle, right? And locking that area down. We're able to maybe have kind of a 2-2 split, or even a 1-1-1-1 split. And yes, it makes sense what they've done, but it could be a reason why they end up going out earlier in this game. In the past, I would have said it's 100% the best move what they've done, but between the meta shifting and seeing results swing in the direction of a team that's able to lock down Painan successfully in these kind of circles, I now get why Painan can be a pretty powerful place to stay inside.
Rise now are going to be peppered out. It sounded like a VSS for a second, but I know that's probably just my hearing being terrible. It was, in fact, an M4 landing the bullets nearby, but none of them actually able to connect, so Rise are just going to be kind of working their way through. Neto is going to be the first to fall from INTZ, as the rest of the squad not really anywhere to provide some support. Sure, there is a player further up the hill, but no line of sight. He's playing up the top. I don't think INTZ really expected the team to be close, but I guess that's the nature of Sanhok, isn't it, at times?
I know this is a little bit off topic, but you mentioned the VSS. I kind of really wish the VSS was more in the meta. I'd love to see that weapon get buffed in some way, shape, or form, because I think there's something, again, just a little bit sadistic about that weapon. And plus, I think it has the potential to be a beautifully well-rounded gun. I know, again, it's off topic, but you mentioned it, so I thought I'd just speak what was on my mind about it.
I like it. You know what? You gotta share the love for those maybe underutilized parts of the game.
Yeah.
It's something that, you know, every now and then you'll see a comp player go through and maybe switch up a little bit and pull out a gun that you don't usually expect, and they'll use it so effectively that you start seeing 3-4 other players thinking, "Hey, I'm gonna copy this strategy." So who knows? If any comp players are watching right now want to start running the VSS, we're not gonna stop you.
No. I'll get fully behind you, just like Aton are going to get fully behind themselves as a push forward onto the members of Honored Souls. But Fran is knocked. That puts a bit more pressure on them.
Now, Mibs pushing up a bit further. CXC, nicely done. Just tap firing with the M4 to be able to find that player. Aton do need to try and find themselves that revive, but it doesn't look like they're able to find any just yet. They're still in a bit of a tricky position with Honored Souls pushing up, as Honored Souls still down 2 players. They do throw out nades, and it looks like it's going to be the vehicle rotation at least into the compound to get to cover a bit quicker, but instead just going to rotate away and back off of this, and I can't blame them.
Yeah, especially because phase 2 is about to pop up, so as you disengage, even though you're down to 2 duo, it allows you to react to the next circle shift much quicker. It does go overall actually a little bit up north, still predominantly the southwestern island, but because it has kind of gone up that north west, it's just starting to squeeze a little bit of extra doubt into the minds of the players on where exactly the circle is going to end up. Mainland, Southwest Island, even Northwest Island, they're all still in play, Chunks.
It's an important question that we're only going to see the answer for later on in the game, as teams have to figure out how they want to play this. It's going to be a hard one. There's no way about it. There's no easy solution for any of these squads. As sure, there's a lot of space still to play. There's a little bit of room for teams to work with, but in terms of flexibility, being able to maybe go a little bit split, it's just not really viable in a position like this, where it is very much, okay, we either have to take a compound, we play a hillside and try and watch our backs.
There's a lot of teams in the center of the circle, right? Inco, Knights, BULUC, CHABTAN. Right now, Inco are the ones that are probably under the most amount of pressure because they have 2 teams around them. You could even say, to an extent, a 3rd team in the hands of Nova, but they're more heavily split around this area. Inco need to think about what they really want to do. How much information have they been able to gather? A 2-2 split isn't bad, but again, it's not really that kind of 3-man defense, right? It's not that full squad defense. It could be thinning themselves out a little bit too much.
You got to hope that isn't the case. You got to hope that teams are going to be able to stay in a point where, okay, we have good angles and we can cover a wide variety of space. No teams can really sneak up on us, but you also can't be spreading yourself too thin. And as you mentioned, I think that's something that Inco may end up doing. If they take a fight against either of these teams, surely the other squad who's on the other side of them are just going to be there for third party. So Inco don't really have a choice but to play passive now, but judging from their positions, that's not what they want to do.
Couldn't have said that better myself. Playing passive is the name of the game with the position they have locked down currently. There's nothing wrong with being a little bit proactive in terms of grabbing information, because that will allow them to shape a reposition, shape a turnaround from passive to aggression. But again, they can't overstep their mark. The next phase is about to pop up soon enough. Delta Star is still in the blue. Nunez of Rise is still in the blue. Black Dragons quickly moving out of the blue into the edge of the circle on that northwest side.
Vitaly's still scouting out, taking a couple shots. I'm not sure whether he even knows where that Nova player is, or whether he maybe is thinking, oh, well, he was at this rock a second ago, so let's try and tap a few shots over. But unfortunately, to no avail. Fernan still just laying it in the grass, getting info, hoping that Inco don't spot him, but that's a pretty nice bush that he's got right there.
Yeah, and I think he knows that one of the players of Inco is there, but again, because to be fair, BULUC CHABTAN, they came into this game as a 3-person team, and they're a little bit split on that area. And not just split in the way that they're able to support each other. It's actually a bit of a split where there's just not that much support from each other per se. They're able to grab information, but if the fight breaks out, it's going to be tough for them. That's why Ferdinand isn't taking the shots.
Yeah, it's about playing passive, playing smart right here, not wanting to overextend. Also, I am just going to say, remember at the beginning of the game, I was hoping for that Painan circle.
Yeah.
I'm feeling cautiously optimistic, let's put it like that. With that shift, I'm feeling good.
Yeah, it's where it becomes a little bit trickier for Knights, because they reposition away from Painan to not only hopefully get information, but to do something with that information. They've been very quiet. Now is the time they need to start to kind of wake up, smell the coffee, and as the circle shrinks in, control is going to be the name of the game, and that's going to be a bit of a thin line between control and losing control.
I think it's going to be a tricky one. I think that if you're a team right now who is in a position that is maybe just outside of Painan or something, it is just a case of hunkering down and trying not to make too much noise, because you know everyone is going to be settling around you, especially when you look at how many players we have alive. It feels like usually, at least on Sanhok, a lot less players still standing at this point in the game.
Yeah.
We've usually lost like 2 or 3 teams by this point, so I think in a circle like this, it's going to be spicy. I don't think there's any other way to put it.
We have lost kind of quite a few, at least individual players, right? So 47 players is a little bit closer to the norm, but you are right, still 15 teams alive, as ATON is going to whittle down to possibly 14 if they can get the squad out on the ISURUS. I think that's a third party by Honored Souls from a distance is going to slow them down a little bit, but for the most part, with 3 players still going, they should be able to maintain control along the eastern side of the circle.
Brand's still looking out from above, but can't quite see down below. There's a little bit of time till the circle is completely closed, but it's forcing teams in. That's why we see teams like VIVO posted up and able to get their second elimination of the game when this player bleeds out. That leaves Black Dragons in a little bit of a tricky spot. Both their players are extremely split from each other, and both outside the zone to make all things even worse. So fingers crossed they will be able to make their way in. Team QUESO, though, long-range barrel spray. Will it work out this time? Not quite, but damage that came through is still very impressive.
Cheesy does it. 5 eliminations strong into this game. You hold on to that kind of southeastern side of the circle. You're close as well to that mainland should a shift on the next circle, so you're able to grab information. I like the fact that they have at least 1 player looking across the mainland, right? They actually have 2 players. So that's good proactivity, good preparation, good forward thinking from Team QUESO as ISURUS things go from bad to worse as they're down to just 1 player.
8 on 7. The player a little bit split, just clearing their way through. They shouldn't have to worry too much right now. ISG do end up falling in 15th position. Rare to see so many teams still up. I mentioned it earlier, but a lot of individuals being taken down. I'm excited to see when that live leaderboard comes back up, which teams are still 4 men strong, because it feels like there are very few left. And as the circle centers up, it looks like it's going to be a Painan ending. I'm just going to say it now.
Look, Chunks, you came into this game saying it's really hard to predict these circles. You've kind of predicted it, right? You mentioned Painan. It continues to shift up, center in, and Influence Rage. They've been inside Painan, by the way, since Phase 2. Knights still under Southern Hills. You're now technically outside the circle. Inco Gaming created a little bit of space around them when they got an elimination point onto Nova. Second Nova player has been locked down inside the blue. Inco, Knights, BULUC, CHABTAN, VIVO, they all have to move into the circle.
Becca is just going to be swinging out in the open right now. I'm not sure how I feel about this. Sure, there's nobody around, but at the same time, you're just exposing yourself so much. If there is anyone just sneaking in behind, maybe going for a heel strat, then you're getting punished. Here it is, though. BULUC CHABTAN, we knew they were going to be fighting soon enough as the team pushed in. It's only Medion left up as he hops around the back of the building, just going to be laying prone. Hoping he can maybe get them to push 1 by 1, but unfortunately, it is going to be Inco up top there to sponge things up. Definitely working to try and close that gap between them and Alpha 7 up at the top of the leaderboard, making the most out of the fact that Alpha 7 aren't in the match.
But I think Becker is doing this on purpose, right? I think the reason why he was kind of so far away from his teammates is to allow the rest of his team to kind of be a little bit more confident. As it happens, yeah, we're kind of right in terms of Scragglers coming in from the blue. Does see him get knocked. Golden is close by. Could be able to turn this around and keep Becker alive.
He's just working his way down the hill. Has been spotted out by Golden.
Lovely.
And almost taken out, but unfortunately the spray wasn't enough. So fortunate there for Inco. Now having a player knocked, a player out the fight. I don't think 4 points is what they were really looking for. Now with only a solo, a beautiful spray coming through from range right there. Inco are very worse for wear, and Nicholas might actually be able to make something out of this, even with only 6 bandages.
Sheesh, it's gone from bad to worse for Inco. Now they're down to a solo, and Nicholas is going to be able to get closer, confirming another elimination point and stealing that one away from VIVO. Keyed Influence Rage have a big, massive spread on the northern side of Pineland, by the way. Knights, really got to question what they've been doing throughout this game, because to be perfectly honest, it's been absolutely nothing.
I'm kind of questioning what Vitaly's doing right now as well. Obviously, it worked out. He was able to take down Nicholas, but I might be wrong. It feels like he could have maybe gone and got the revive onto his teammate. And I may be completely wrong. If Knights were providing pressure and he didn't feel like he was able to move, that would make sense. But it just feels like the common sense thing to do when you've got 2 players left up and you know there's a solo behind and a whole lot of teams ahead. It just feels like, oh, why not get aggressive onto that? And now he has to run down an open hillside with Knights looking down at him.
Normally, or in other situations, I would agree, but again, his teammate went to go for the revive onto the first player that got knocked down, and he paid the price. So I think in that situation, with the information that had been gathered, it just wasn't worth the risk. In the end, Inco get taken down. We're down to 11 teams. VIVO Keyed being the bridge trolls between the Southwest Island and the mainland. It shifted a little bit more towards the mainland finish, but Pineland is still very heavily in play.
I mean, Influence Rage is so happy right now. They are just chilling at the center of the circle, not a care in the world. They're just vibing. Right? There's no other way to put it. I will say, though, QUESO, they are going to be out of it in 10th position. So 9 teams now remain, and oh no, VIVO Key. That was a big nade landing up on towards Cello right there.
2 of the Knights players at least made it back down into Pineland, so they're at least inside the circle, the safety of the buildings down on the south side of the city. ATON, Lucky got knocked. CXE, now just going to drive in, try and find a position in the circle, but the members of Rise are a little bit close by, and don't know how much longer he's going to be able to stay alive. VIVO Keyed, 5 eliminations and counting, full squad still going.
Diego just going to be laying prone. I like what he's doing. Look, there may not be any players over there, but he is keeping an eye out. He knows that if there are players out in that area, they're going to be very vulnerable. He himself, though, is vulnerable to the players inside Pineland as he needs to go for heal. And by the way, in case anyone didn't notice, the zone has shifted. It has gone all the way up to the northeast, and now Knights are the only real team that have to make a move outside of maybe Ken up on the north, the solo for ESG, who has to try and heal his way through with VIVO Keyed looking right at him. So I don't think that's going to go too well for him. I hate to say that. I hate to curse it. But if VIVO Keyed have any idea, then there's not really any chance of him getting in.
I'm definitely glad that it wasn't as heavy on kind of trying to predict the area of the circle finishing, that I didn't put all my eggs into one basket of the Southwest Island, as that has shifted over to the mainland. It's good for Rise. It's good for Influence Rage. It's still quite tricky for VIVO Keyed.
Yeah, still going to be a serious challenge. They at least have a bit of a ridgeline to work with, but with Rise posted up with a player anchoring inside a compound, you know it's going to be a tricky one. Equally tricky is going to be the cross for Knight here, as they have been spotted out. And that's the downside to smokes, isn't it? As much as they cover you, they also draw all the attention. That was Ken. It seems like VIVO Keyed didn't have an idea, so he nearly managed to steal away a kill there.
He did indeed nearly backstab VIVO Keyed. They stay strong as a full squad. Knights go down as they try to make their way across Pineland over to the northern side. One thing that I'm very happy to see is, as far as I know, only one team has gone for a heal strat. That's Nova, is Rise, VIVO Keyed. Get close to each other.
Rise are going to try and make something out of this, but it is Diego who's actually the first player to find a knock, followed by a second right there. He's traded out. In comes the push here. Rise are just getting shredding on top of this hill as everyone seemingly starts to fall. Zenit up top goes to the 3x spray. Is going to be able to do even more damage. So many knocks right now. Influence Rage, the team that's kind of been sitting pretty in Pineland, now that they're forced to move out, push over that wall, Rise are just absolutely punishing them. If Rise have any nades, you got to think it's over. But never mind, Mythic is actually able to return a little bit of fire right there.
It's gonna be hard for Influence Rage. QUESO gets knocked in the blue. Just little boy left alive behind the wall outside the circle. This is most likely going to be a second chicken dinner of the day for Rise Esports.
We will see. They're still going for the revive, which means that right now, at least, there's only one player actually providing cover and watching. Federal is going to likely bleed out. It doesn't look like Lil Boy has any intention of going to that, but he could try and make something now that Rise are taking shots over in a different direction. But as he's out in the blue, it is going to become a bit of a heal battle, and you have to wonder just how long he can really survive fighting against, as I said, the only real winner in PUBG Mobile is the blue zone. He's doing what he can, stay in it. 3 teams left up. Make it 5 alive. Make it 2 teams. It's a 1 versus 3. I think we can all tell how this is going to end. Rise should be able to get themselves that relatively easy chicken dinner, sweeping through. I don't even know where that final player is right now.
He is off in the distance, just doing what he does best. Nova grabbed themselves a second place. I don't like having that plan A heal sharp and Nova make it work. What I do like is what Influence Rage Little Boy did. Denied the point to Rise. It can go a long way. It's not what you naturally want to do as a player, right? You naturally want to kind of go out fighting. But when you deny a point, that can be so crucial to your team being the reason why you end up ahead of your opponents, right? In terms of the overall standings.
Nicely done from Nova to remain in it till the second, but come on, dude, just wrap it up. You can see there's 4 alive, right? There's nothing going on in the kill feed. You have to have the idea. 1 first aid left. It's going to be over in about, what, 5 seconds? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There it is, the 5 seconds dead on. Nova are out of it. Rise Esports get themselves a chicken dinner, the 4th of the evening. They're second of their night.
Yeah, Rise, their performance was as accurate as your counting was at the end of that game. Double chicken dinner in day number 4 of the Americas Elite League Season 4. What a great bounce back from yesterday's results, right? 14 points in 5 games for them in yesterday's day 3. And it's looking a lot better as they try and get back up within the race for the top 3. Influence Rage continue to be consistent. They showed this in last season's results. They were easily the most consistently performing team, and it's really what allowed them to capture the first place in Season 3. They're looking to defend it in Season 4, and they're heading in the right direction.
Really impressive indeed. Influence Rage, look, as much as you wanted to see Lil Boy actually push out and get aggressive there, I don't think it was realistic. He didn't have enough meds. There was no cover to work with, so it's not really a surprise he did end up bleeding out. Nova, sure, the game extended quite a bit so they could heal up, getting themselves a second place, but with only 1 elimination point, it means that even after what was, in terms of placement, a very good performance, it's not really going to count for too much in terms of the match results. You see it there, sure, 19 points for Influence Rage, but Nova Esports, the team that we were talking about, 13 points. All of those pretty much placement. Rise Esports stealing the show and stealing a lot of eliminations.
It's a good result for VIVO Key. Their performance to an extent had dropped quite heavily, so it was good to see them kind of look a little bit like their old selves per se. And Knights, it wasn't the prettiest game. It was genuinely actually quite a lackluster, disappointing game from them. I get the idea around where they positioned to from Painan, but they did literally nothing from that area, right? There was no real aggression, there was no real control, and they were forced to go back down to Painan as just a duo, but it was at least enough to pick up a 9-point result.
Yep. Credit to ATON Esports as well. We should talk about that one. 9 eliminations, but only 1 placement point. I think that's kind of what we saw out of Knights yesterday, isn't it? Where they put their foot on the gas early, they take a lot of fights, but unfortunately, they just kind of lose players one by one, and that means they're not really able to get into the placement points. But we'll see if that's able to change going forward. I can't wait to see the stats, see just what these teams were able to do. I get the feeling, Imperium, and I might be wrong here. I think that Nova might be the team with one of the highest heals done. I think they've got to be up there.
I think your stats are looking to be, or your prediction is going to be looking to be indubitably correct, or at least as correct as your Pinam finish was. To be fair, and that was pretty damn correct, I must note. I'm also super curious to see what the overall standings are going to look like, as Inco Gaming did grab themselves 7 points. Again, Alpha 7 were not playing in this game. Rise, 6 eliminations, 6 knocks. That is clinical.
Yeah, really impressive. That's what you want to see, isn't it? Get the knock, get the flush, confirm it into an elimination as soon as possible. I will say, though, I'm a little bit surprised that they didn't have to use more utility. That's something that a lot of the winning teams tend to use. They'll go very utility heavy. Look at their first win this evening. That was very utility focused. They used the smokes, but I think the nature of their position and being able to sweep through the top of that hill, smokes and nades wouldn't really have made too much of an impact just because of how open it is up there. If you're able to get yourself a rock, lay down some fire, then who needs nades as long as you can shoot your shot?
MVP of the game was Mythic of Rise Esports. He's been consistently up there. He is, I would say, outside of a couple of others, the most exciting player to watch in all of kind of North America as a region. Well, not North America, but North America, LATAM, and Brazil.
Americas.
The reason why I say Americas, I suppose. Yeah, Americas. The reason why I say that is because he's not afraid to take chances. He's not afraid to push boundaries. He's not afraid to take risks. And even though sometimes it doesn't work out, when it does, he just makes the game look so much more exciting.
Yeah, I think that was proven there. Rise, it feels like when they have a bad game, they have a really bad game. But when they have a good game, it's always exciting to watch. And they're able to do it with real skill and a real force behind them. And I think that goes for a lot of these squads. I will say, though, look, Team QUESO able to get themselves a decent number of rounds fired. But unfortunately, it wasn't quite as strong as they're still looking for. It feels like Team QUESO, as strong and as consistent as they have been, until they start having those occasional big performances, I'm just going to be a little bit let down by them, which is tough to say. But unless they do have these consistent performances, and then, say, every 10 games they have one big match, I'm a little bit concerned that they aren't going to be in the top 3, and that gap is just going to continue growing.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. It's one of the things that really kind of stopped them from executing a really, really, really strong end result in Season 3, right? They got up there, but because of that kind of lack of consistency, low-key wasn't enough. The overall standings are here, Chunks. Wasn't quite enough gaming to really put that kind of 1 to 2 point behind ATON Esports pressure, but it's within their grasps. 9 points.
I was just about to say it. 9 points in it. It is so close right now. And Influence Rage are only 3 points behind that after a really strong performance themselves. Lazarus, we've seen what they can do. All it takes is one game and they can absolutely pop off and kind of make it a 4-horse race. Other than that, Rise, Loops, Ints, all those teams below, all it takes is 1 or 2 strong matches, like I said. If they're able to keep up the consistency and also pull some big matches out the bag, then they're going to be up there and they're going to be fighting.
It's so close, man. It really is overall so close. Rise do have a bit further of a way to kind of get up in towards the top 4, right? They're 14 points behind Lazarus. They're then another 13 points ahead of that, so that's kind of like 27 behind Influence Rage, but another maybe a third chicken dinner of the day for right, could definitely see them pull that gap and send themselves into the top 3.
3 chicken dinners in 5 matches. Is it too much to ask? I mean, they've already pulled off 2, so who knows? We still have 1 match left to go for this evening in the Americas Elite League. We are going to take a very short break, but we're going to be back in just a couple minutes with our penultimate game of the evening, game number 5 over here on Erangel, to mark the halfway point of Season 4. See you in a couple minutes. Final matchup of the evening. It marks the halfway point of the Americas Elite League, and we are starting to see a couple teams really stand out, but I gotta say the middle of the pack is very hotly contested, isn't it, Imperium? Oh, wrong side.
Oh, you got the wrong side, man. God damn it. It's fine. I made the mistake earlier as well, man. But you know what? I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Indeed, it has been hotly contested over and towards the top of the standings, my friend. Okay, that actually gets really annoying looking over to the side for too long.
Oh, yeah, because I have to keep checking my monitor as well.
Bruh. Yeah, very close in the overall standing, so I'm hoping this last game is going to really be a fantastic finish in day 4 of the Americas Elite League. As he said, we're getting into the halfway mark. Now, of course, INTZ currently lying in, I believe, 7th place. They're not playing in this game. ATON currently lying in 12th, not playing in this game. Polaris in 20th, not in this game. And Knights in 30th, not in this game. What that means is all of the top 6 are in this game. So bring it on, boys. I want to see hot, spicy action. I want to see hot drops. I want to see the madness unfold.
Bring it on indeed. It's Erangel for the final match of the evening. Look, if this evening's Erangel match is specifically our previous one to go off, then the wheels are going to come well and truly off. And look, we always talk in a lot of PR games about the whole Game 6 scrims, or I guess Game 5 scrims. How much is that true here in PUBG Mobile? Are we expecting to see some Game 6 scrims level plays, or do you think players will be taking this one extra serious, knowing that the pressure's on?
No, I don't think the teams are going to be taking this extra seriously. The tournament being as strong as it is and as competitive as it is will always play into teams taking it more seriously, but it can be the case whereas when it's the last game of the day, it's like the shackles unleash. It's like kind of the uniform goes off, and we see teams start to play maybe with a little bit more freedom, with a little bit more aggression. It's like if you're working a 9-to-5 job and you've got kind of like 10 minutes left on your shift, you tend to take those last 10 minutes just really not as seriously, right? So that's what the last game of the day can be like sometimes.
I'm just going to say it now. That playing path does not bode well, does it, for how this game is going to go? I feel like teams are going to be very limited in their drops, and we already saw a milli-based hot drop. I believe it was earlier on tonight, so I'm interested to see whether that ends up happening again, whether maybe we get a bit of a better result, because I don't remember exactly what teams it was, but it was over on that western side of Millie Base. It was just all over the place. It felt like one of the teams was split looting. Well, I think it was Team QUESO, which just completely solidified and tore through the other squad.
Yeah, there was like 3 to 4. There was like 3 to 4 teams that instantly dropped on Military Island. What I'd love to see in this phase 1 is a very northwest shift. So around Stallbar in the center, just to really like take these teams in the face for the final day. You know, just to kind of say to them, look, it doesn't matter. Just take as many fights as you can. The circle is not going to help you this time around.
And here was you saying last game you wanted a nice peaceful game that the players will be able to get behind.
Hey,
and
look,
you know what? I'm going to say I like this circle. There's the potential for that Primorsk getting in, but I think we do have to focus on Pachinki, right? This is a fight that has been going on a couple times throughout the evening. Don't get me wrong, I respect the confidence from ISURUS, but up against a team like this, I'm not sure whether it's the play personally.
No, I overall, with all due respect to ISURUS Gaming, these are pretty much 4 free elimination points for Inco. Stats speak for itself. ISURUS have proven to be a very passive game. The fact that they're hot dropping on Pachinki just goes massively against the grain. Like, there's zero sense to it. If you're going to have a pattern of play, at least actually have a pattern of play. BULUC CHABTAN did kind of drop a little bit to the west of Pachinki, and I thought they maybe might look to get involved, but they've just used it to grab some vehicles and now are making their way over to the Watertown area to start their looting phase. This phase on, as you mentioned, it could end up hanging around the Primorsk area. It's great for initially Influence Rage, even Team QUESO and ESTORM, but they got to be careful, especially ESTORM. If they stick to a split drop around that Kaka area and they leave it too late to join up into one core position, they could end up getting picked off.
Yeah, I think it's a mistake a couple of teams have made, is maybe playing a little bit too fast and loose early on. So I think being able to consolidate while still having a bit of a split going on, maybe a bit of a 2-2 between compounds, is the ideal scenario for the majority of these teams. And I think it's finding that balance, isn't it? Some teams have done it, some teams have not. Some teams have been able to do it one game and then completely throw it away the next. So I think it's about being able to consistently do that. That's what really makes a top team here.
Rise, 2 of the 3 games they played, they got themselves chicken dinner. So that's a 2 for the price of 1. Can't argue with that. They're still outside the blue, starting to loot up kind of apartments, school, and even the compound a little bit further away from that. The J compound, grabbing a couple of vehicles along the way. See, I'm remembering. My memory isn't that bad.
Learning together. You know, we're learning together. You're teaching me all about these teams that I'm not super familiar with, and I'm teaching you what to name compounds. So,
Exactly. Feel free to let me know other areas and other compound names that, to an extent, that are kind of universally known. Because again, if I can spread it, I'll do it.
Do you know my favorite compound name is,
what is it?
And the only reason that this name exists is because a load of players were playing with Korean players, and they called it this, so now it's kind of taken on a meaning globally. It's the Hanging Gardens compound. Are you familiar with that one?
No,
you know, up towards Mansion. I think a lot of people like to call it Alamo. It's like a hill compound. It's like a hill compound a lot of people want to work for. That's what the Korean players, or it might be the Thai players, call the Hanging Gardens. And ever since, it's the only thing I've ever called it, because it just sounds so peaceful, doesn't it?
It actually does. It sounds much better than Alamo. I'll probably stick to Alamo just because it's what I've been calling it for a while, and others do as well. I also really love the Lion King Hill, because that just sounds pretty grand, and I've seen Lion King in the theater live, and yeah, I definitely love the name of that compound.
Jesse, I think, got eyes on that player then, but I don't think his reactions were really there in time to shoot. It was a bit of a jiggle peek, but they both know where each is, so if one of them has a nade, then definitely cause some problems. But right now, it's maybe a bit of a game of chicken. It's who's going to be the last to peak. I will say, though, ISG have definitely changed up their strategy from what we saw the last time they hot dropped. Last time, they were a little bit worse for where they let Inco kind of corral them into positions, whereas now they're holding steadfast. Sure, they've got players very close together, but in a position where, okay, if someone wants to push Joko up top, that player down the bottom is going to be able to hold the crossfire and potentially prevent them from pushing up the stairs. It doesn't look like there's any stop in XSET right now, though, as they completely send it into the center, are going to be able to find one, but the players get taken down low in return. You have to take an extremely long-range battle up against Honored Souls.
Yeah, Honored Souls had a 2-1-1 split. They should have been aware that XSET kind of play around the eastern side. They always drop melting. They're going to swing their way through. Good return fire from CG God with the barrel from a distance with just a hollow sight. Argue with that. The revive should come through, because I don't think Honored Souls are going to massively push this. Fifth on the other side with his teammate XSET are indeed going to look to push it. They recognize that it's just one player from Honored Souls on his own, so two in a vehicle. They're going to push the shack.
Might be one player, but he's still holding his own. He's putting up a lot of fire, but unfortunately he's not quite able to connect. The Pachinki fight finally starting to kick off right now, and it's going to be Inco who find that initial couple of eliminations. It leaves Martino as the final player left up. I don't know what happened. I don't know how Inco found that opening, but as soon as you find it, you are going to make the most out of it. And you can see they're frustrated. They're shooting the bodies. That's a certain level of stay away, don't come back again. You should have learned your lesson, and well, XSET clearly haven't learned their lesson about early game fights. Two players not.
Yeah, because, like, no team, even though if they win it 99% of the time, actually, no, I'll talk about it later on, because XSET, although they pushed on the Honored Souls, it was that little bit of a third-party opportunity for Nova that has kicked them out of touch, and now Killswitch is the last player up for XSET. I feel sorry for XSET, to be honest, because you don't really expect it to happen in phase one. I suppose if I'm thinking about it, I feel less sorry because I touched upon Honored Souls. They should have been aware of XSET dropping a Milta. Same thing for XSET. They should be aware that Nova drop around farm area, right? They are always going to be around that vicinity.
Lazarus now, though, starting off with some momentum of their own. They've still got 4 players standing, so you can't blame them, but they're coming up against LOTUS, a squad who have done extremely well so far tonight as the first player falls. KNGHT just tries to send it up over the top. That was an interesting strategy. Doesn't even go for the seat swap. Just decided to drive up, see what was going on. Joey preps the nade. It looks like there's going to be a buggy coming close he could aim for, but instead goes to the long-range player. The buggy pulls up over at the shack. That means that Lazarus is going to be losing another player. Menor from the side is going to be able to eliminate another. Kaiseki now is moving around the back. All it's going to take is him to spot one pixel off that player it doesn't look like he was able to.
Well,
Pulls
they
out
know
the
where
nade,
he
knows
is.
there's someone there, realizes now, but he'd already started cooking the nade. Now it's going to come down to a bit of hit fire. He's able to connect just about, but Loops is sending yet another player in. The seat swap, it doesn't work out. He gets taken down. KNGHT is down to low HP, needs to go and get pro, needs to heal up, and needs support off his teammates, but they're all knocked.
Oh,
That means
no.
Lazarus falling out in 14th position. Not ideal for them at all, but a couple of elims to go alongside it.
Yeah, bit of a strong effort from KNGHT to try and at least salvage something, and he did indeed pick up one elimination point for his team, but it wasn't enough in the end, and Loops will survive the might of Lazarus. Unfortunately, that's not going to bode well for them in the overall standings and allow the likes of Rise to maybe shoot on up ahead of them, even Influence Rage, having playing in from the west. VIVO Key down on the western side, along with the likes of Influence Rage. ESTORM still have the center of the circle. Team QUESO playing on the very Ferry Pier hillside. Blues on to phase one, quickly closing it.
Nova still taking a lot of shots, but they are out on the east. It is a little bit surprising to me, Imperium, that we have had so many teams go down early and the center of the zone is so open. Do you think there's a case of hesitation here for some of these teams? They are realizing, hey, it's the last game. Teams might just try and send it into the center pretty early on and hold us out. Maybe we should rotate a little bit later rather than going in straight away, because it seems like teams are very hesitant to me to actually go center, and that might just be down to the hardships earlier.
No, it's not really that. It's a good question, Chunks. It's primarily because of the playing path. That playing path was always kind of against the teams on the east to an extent. So there was that cluster of teams rotating in, and most of the fights have been on the eastern side of the map so far. So I think that's why we've seen like a few extra team fights in that area of the map. Phase 2 has shifted up a lot of the water out of the play, but it is still predominantly on the southwestern side of the Erangel map. A lot of familiar places to lock down inside this Phase 2 chunks. You have the north side of Kari, you have the hills around it, you have Gaka, you have Chopsticks, and if you want to more over to the west where VIVO Key and Influence Rage have themselves locked down is also very good.
Very good indeed. The zone will start moving soon enough, just creeping its way through. So many teams still outside. You have to think that space is going to become very limited very quick. Loops already bumping into Nova, losing yet another player. Nova are playing fast and loose right now with the way they're split. It has to be said, and it's kind of working out for them.
They've always had that kind of edge of circle play, but there's a little bit more aggression behind his edge of circle play in the final game of the day. There's been some good opportunistic movements, right? They played in onto the XSET Honored Souls fight, and they got the squad wipe onto XSET. I think Honored Souls as well ended up. No, Honored Souls still have one player up, but they still became quite effective in that area. And yeah, this is some good stuff for Nova in the final game of the day.
Chief moving through as the final player left up for Loops. They've got 4 elimination points out of it, but I think they probably would have hoped for a whole lot more out of this final game after what I think is fair to say has been a decent performance from them. Sure, it's not all been super consistent, but they've had a couple games where they've got a couple of elims and made it into the late match. So in terms of the points they've gained today, I think they can be pretty happy with the first few games.
Talking about a couple of rides with a couple of chicken dinners so far in this day 4. Really looking for a third. Bit of a third party from Team QUESO is going to slow them down. ESTORM maybe being given a little bit of respite inside this compound. Mufasa swinging around, looking for the pre-fire. FPP mode. Walls goes for the drop shot. Makes it work for ESTORM.
Beautifully done right there to remain in it. Walls is out of it. He will be immediately getting flushed as well. Riser not taking any prisoners. It doesn't look like they're going to be able to get their third chicken dinner now with only 2 players left up, but they're certainly not going to go out without a fight. Team QUESO sending everybody into this one, but Senhok can hear this. He's prepping the pre-nades. He just wants one to roll up on them. It seems like they are going to line close, but nothing coming of it just yet. If anything, it'll just slow them down. Ken tries to make some noise, goes to the spray, but he isn't able to do it. He isn't able to get line of sight. So now, Rise have really just done a number on Ken, because he's solo and Team Queso have just crashed.
Firstly, I gotta say, Ken, what even were you doing in that engagement when your team was really taking something? You were nowhere to be seen. That's not very good team play. But even then, when you had the opportunity to get the shots onto the members of Rise, you really did nothing about it. He is able to at least disengage as the last player up for ESTORM, as the blue zone of phase 2 is indeed starting to close in. We're 15 minutes into the game, chunks. 39 players left, 13 teams. Black Dragons down on the south side with Nova still continue to spread it themselves out. The replay is in on how they push in onto XSET and found the opportunistic movement, and I believe that was the moment that Killswitch got eliminated. If I'm not mistaken, he might have stepped over the building, but either way, Nova looking good in this game.
Oh, I don't think he stepped over the building, Imperium. I think he maybe mistimed the nade. That's an unfortunate one. That's the first time I've seen the replay as well, so the observers really wanted to rub salt into the wounds there.
Feels bad, man. F in the chat for Killswitch. Overcooked that nade. Even Gordon Ramsay wouldn't be happy with how that one played out.
Unfortunately, not this time. Got to get those nades nice and meaty if you want them to land and be able to convert into an elimination. What?
Whoa, medium rare? Come on, man. Rare.
Are you all rare? No, that's too much, man.
Yeah,
that's,
rare,
nah,
man.
I can't.
It's not, man. It's not, man.
Maybe when I can afford an expensive steak, I'll try it rare. How about that?
You know what, man? When we meet up, because we will meet up, I will take you out for a steak dinner.
I'll hold you to that. I will hold you to that.
Genuinely do, man. I promise you, when we meet up, I'll take you out for a nice steak dinner, all on me, man.
All right, chat. Hold him to that. If you ever see us at a studio or something together, I expect to be served a steak on stream, just to prove it to chat, all right? We'll be mid-cast, I'll just be scranning a filet mignon, because I know you're going to treat me right. You're going to spoil me, right?
Oh, yeah. Of course.
I'm excited.
Only the best. Only the best.
Only the best. Just like only the best PUBG games we're getting right now. Look at this. Everyone
Inco.
migrating right the way towards Quarry in that swamp area. I love seeing that swamp over to like the west-northwest of Quarry being used. It is brutal to play out of, but you can see those little compounds west of Quarry as well. They are fully challenging to work with. You'll usually have 2-3 teams all scrapping for them, and it is one of those where you'll have 2-3 players alive at the end of those scraps.
There's a lot of little pockets of areas to lock down where you can't really get as much of a controlling spread, but you're able to at least stay hunkered down in your area in the hopes that the next shift stays in your favor. You talked about the swamps you have outside of the Quarry area, even the northern side of Quarry. Yes, it allows you to play a bit more spread, but is still a pocket within itself. The high ground will be able to give Team Queso a little bit more information, more towards the center side of the circle, but they need to watch their backs down on the southern edge of the circle. Nova are looking for an opportunity to strike.
Myth is just sneaking up on himself, though. He's going to try and strike as well. Realizes that Rise are ahead. If he realized exactly what team it was, I think he would definitely be going for this, try and shut down that momentum before it fully kicks off, especially with only 2 players left up. But he's just waiting, avoiding making any noise, listening out for those audio cues, has an idea there's a Rise player. I'm a little bit worried about those players up in the compound up to the northeast. Surely they're going to spot him. As I say that, that's exactly what happens. Myth goes down, and, well, Honored Souls, they're going to have to throw out smokes, and unfortunately for them, give their position away to Rise.
That was definitely a little bit of tunnel vision from Myth right there, because I don't disagree with him staying where he was. If he, hypothetically speaking, or situationally, in a different game, there wasn't a team in that compound,
even
and he had scouted it out. Well, no, but if he had scouted out, but my point is he didn't. He didn't look around him. He was so focused on the players in front of him that he ended up being punished for it.
It's something I think it's a mistake that we all kind of make when we're playing PUBG Mobile, isn't it?
Of course.
We all kind of get that tunnel vision, so I can't really blame him, but at the end of the day, look, these are some of the best players in the world that we're watching right now.
Exactly.
I don't think there's any way to deny that, so you have to constantly be on guard. Everything has to be ready, and that's the beauty of Battle Royales, isn't it? You have to constantly be prepared for everything. All it takes is one small mistake and you're out the fight. You're spectating your team for the next half hour. So unfortunate that that's the way he goes down, but I mean, Rise have been able to get the revive. That's the important thing, and now they can potentially move up and do some damage onto the final Honor Souls player. And look at that shift. It is going to the swamp after all.
Expect the unexpected, and the unexpected circle shift comes through up and towards the north. It's going to be great for Alpha 7. Even better for Delta Stars, as they are on their own up into more northern side. VIVO Key going to play through the fields, and as Team QUESO are quick to react to the circle. Within that, it gives them zero information, and they pay the price. Walking into the open arms of Influence Rage. Bye-bye is on his own. Itsu is down, but his trade comes through.
Bye-bye. Might just have to say hello to his team as they start to crash their way through. Lil Boy with the spray, able to do a bit of damage onto each player, but not able to convert either of them. Beautiful pre-fire coming out there. That's what you want to see. Look, if you know there's a player in a window, and you know that that player's jiggle peeking, you just hold down that finger and make sure you are spraying through that window. That's something we just saw beautifully demonstrated right there. And now, as we hop on board with Influence Rage, they've just been completely torn apart by Team QUESO, who were the ones who crashed the compound. Usually that's the team that ends up going down.
Jesus, what looks so good for Influence Rage has gone horribly wrong, and it realistically is less about their own mistakes and more about Team QUESO turning this fight around and having no fear, just fight. It is 2v3. Federal and Law together, united stand, divided they will possibly fall. But Team QUESO just as effectively together breaching into the building.
Grenades will come out. Maybe expecting Team QUESO to have already moved up, but I like what they're doing. Team QUESO kind of have a read. Oh, Influence Rage are pre-firing, throwing as many smokes. We can wait. We're inside zone. Let them burn through that utility. Because you know as soon as they burn through it, Team QUESO are going to be there to punish, and guess what? Not many teams are really brave enough to crash onto a compound like this, so I wouldn't expect any more to be joined any soon, so QUESO kind of have free range to do what they want.
Is the last player of Rise actually shooting down into that building? And I think that's part of the reason why extra smokes were thrown out by Team QUESO. What's benefiting Influence Rage is that there's a third level to this building, so Team QUESO are a little bit uncertain about pushing up first stairs because of the sight lines Influence Rage are going to have from the third stairwell up on board, heading on top of the roof. Sanhok says, as you can see in the difference, looking in the distance, looking to shoot down, like I said, onto the buildings. As the next circle pops up, this fight is going to look to conclude.
That nade certainly appears to be clear. It wasn't enough to get the knock, but still, on the staircase, there's only so much you can really do. The rail's in the way, but it doesn't block Team QUESO from being able to land their shots, and they do it yet again. Team QUESO able to clean that one up, and Influence Rage will fall in 12th. And now is the time, Imperium, that Black Dragons want to try and capitalize. I said that not many teams would be brave enough to push onto this compound, but that really changes when you see names up in the elimination feed, and you see players start to fall, and you correlate that with gunshots nearby. Yeah. Hey, we can push this. The downside is, though, they maybe think that Team QUESO have less players than they actually do, because they've only lost one.
Yeah, but there is a bit of time, right? They have a good 40 seconds until the blue zone is going to start to close in. They have a bit of a distance to travel to make it in. Either way, if they make this count, they could indeed come out on top. But that's a lovely nade by Nicholas.
Beautifully done right there. Medium rare, if I do say so myself, because it is perfectly cooked. And now that's Team QUESO getting melted completely in a matter of seconds. All it takes sometimes is one opening frag grenade to really tear a team apart and throw them into disarray. It's hard to hold a building with 3 people. Never mind when you lose one of your most influential players who is holding maybe Fangle that anchor position that you were really relying on.
And what that does is it allows Black Dragons to, albeit without information, to play into the edge of the circle without worrying about what's behind them, right? And this is the confidence is going to give them. Martin takes a couple of shots towards Nova, and this is going to swing around on towards the southwestern edge of the circle. Open fields becomes a massive risk, but they're scouting it out. They're looking for information. They're looking for an opportunity to strike. They take down ESTORM.
There's only really one team that can cause a problem, even if they do decide to play this quote-unquote open field, because it's at an angle. They're only really exposed to, I believe, I forget which team it is over on the east right now. I think it's BC. They're the only team that can really cause a problem. Yeah, but instead it's going to be Black Dragons who want to keep aggressive, even having lost a player. Talent's just looting up, making sure he has plenty of heals if push comes to shove, but he still has a vehicle and two teammates, one of whom is inside the zone. Right now, though, it definitely feels like all eyes are on Nova dead center, but at the bottom of a dip, it feels like it's just a matter of time till the nades come through.
Yeah, it can go one of two ways. If a team absolutely crashes them, it could massively hurt them, but I don't think a team is really going to look to slowly encroach on their space because of the level in which Black Dragons have sightlines.
See, Black Dragons, they had sightlines, but now they've lost a player. Nicholas falls, which means that the rest of the players are going to have to start pulling the weight. That's exactly what they do. Martin's Talents each putting in work, but as Martin's falls and Talents goes down as well, it is all over for Black Dragons. Taken down in 6th position, still respectable, and a decent number of eliminations, I believe, to go along with it. They're going to be pretty happy with that result.
Yeah, I'm still pretty happy indeed with how Black Dragons pushed it. Although the fight didn't go their way, it doesn't mean it was a bad idea, and I think it was the right idea. They had to try and make something work as quickly as possible, and they stopped as much opportunity of being third-partied as possible. But look, CHABTAN, push into the eastern side of the circle. VIVO Keith still on the very western edge. Delta Stars in the north. Nova in the middle.
Becca just sneaking his way in. He sees the players from Delta Stars. Opts to go for the first aid kit instead. It's a risky play, but he's just being able to sneak his way in instead. In terms of BULUC CHABTAN, though, they are going with a completely alternate approach. They are throwing in nades. They are taking shots, even with only 2 players left up. And you know what? They might not be at the top of the standings, but they are confident and they want to play aggressive, which I like to see. Escadar does go down. It's Becca who was able to find it, but immediately eliminated in return. I don't think that's really a surprise for anyone. Nova out of it as well. 3 teams now remain. The Molotov's starting to line close. That frag grenade is even closer. Down goes Cello. As VK down to just 3 players left standing. Gerlin hops up over the top with the AK, takes down 2. That is beautifully done to clean up that fight. There's still players remaining, though, they have to be concerned of. 2 teams left. Diego trying to finish off the job with a nade. It looks close to Escobar, but he's already made a move from that rock.
Just while his teammates getting revived up, continue to lay the pressure onto Delta Stars. I think Delta Stars have 1 player just in the edge of the circle, but there's 0 security around them as the mini red zone is playing through.
Shots coming out just through the smoke. It's not really about accuracy. It's about just making them sweat, it feels like. Throw down as many shots in the rough location as you can, and at least keep the heads down. Once you do spot a player moving, though, it's pretty easy to be able to get those eliminations. That's exactly what they did. It's VIVO Keith in the end who get themselves the chicken dinner, but I think it's fair to say it could have gone a few ways towards the end game with just how messy that circle was, but the player advantage ends up being the deciding factor.
Yeah, overall, it was a great position for the circle to end. This is a bit of an unusual area of the map. We rarely see circles ending, and I gotta say, despite it being a rarer spot in the map, that is pun intended, by the way, I think teams dealt with the location extremely well, and it seemed like they showed a lot of confidence around the area, whether it was Vivo Keyed, whether it's BULUC CHABTAN, whether it's Black Dragons, or whether it was Innova. It ended up being a very good finish to the game, and even props to Delta Stars and the Northern side. They got themselves second place.
Really impressive. Delta Star, it feels like they have been working their way up. I think that's fair to say. We've seen them make a lot more noise today than it felt like we saw them make yesterday. So I'm happy to see them get into the top 2. I believe, if not the top 2, they've made it into the top 3 a couple times now. So that's good to see. Vivo Key, though, 26 points. Obviously, the 15 from the placement are very helpful, but 11 eliminations go alongside that. That is nothing to complain about. That is going to help them out considerably, especially taking into account the fact that a team like Alpha 7 was only able to get 3.
Inco Gaming got 10 points. Alpha 7 got 3. So that makes the overall standings pretty close. Rise got themselves 5 points. Not too bad. Loops got 7, so a couple of more. Lazarus going down early means it's going to tighten up the overall standings a little bit more, because Influence Rage also only got 3. So despite them not getting extremely high results, all of the teams in kind of the top 5 got similar amount of points. So it's still going to keep things pretty tight.
That's what we want to see, isn't it? And obviously we don't have the overall standings just yet. They're just being tallied up, checked over a couple times to make sure that they are all correct. But the fact that both of the top squads had, and it's hard to say when you've had a 10-point game, but for the top squads, a 10-point game is fairly disappointed.
Yeah.
I think that it's really going to spice things up a lot. Obviously, Inco have probably,
definitely,
if not tied, made it a very, very close gap between them and Alpha 7. So it just opens up spaces for that 3rd, 4th, 5th place team to start stepping it up. That's something Vivo Key did really well. Obviously, 11 eliminations. Look at that utility usage, though. It feels like we either have none or all of it.
0 to 100 in a matter of a game or two, and those are some pretty clinical stats overall. It was Cielo from Vivo Key to be the MVP of this game. 4 elimination points, only 381 damage, so he was able to capitalize quite nicely on someone else getting a little bit damage or a knock from another team along the way. But it was those 3 assists clearly allowed it to make a very team-wide effort in that security of the chicken dinner from Vivo Keyed.
Absolutely. Taking a look over at the top stats, though, there's a couple of things we should probably take to note. I think the first right there is obviously VK. 2 players with 4 eliminations apiece. And then working alongside that, they both got assists. They're both helping each other out. Finally, some team players here.
It's something Vivo Keyed proved very effectively in Season 3. Now, I think coming into Season 4, maybe teams have learned to adapt around them a little bit more, so they're finding things a bit tougher. But no doubt about it, Vivo Keyed are one of the strongest teams in this lobby. I'm really impressed, by the way, with Alien Kid from BULUC CHABTAN. I really think that he is, unfortunately, at least in this America's Elite League, kind of being weighed down by the rest of his team in terms of he's kind of carrying them on his back. In a lot of moments of these, he's been the star of the show, and for one reason or another, whether it's lack of communication, whether it's lack of synergy, lack of IGLing, something's kind of missing. And even though Alien Kid kind of stands out, the team unfortunately falls prey.
It's unfortunate, isn't it? But we're always going to have that. It feels like there's a fine line, isn't there? There's teams that will consistently work together and be middle of the pack, but you typically see at the top end of things with some of the best teams, they'll have 1 or 2 maybe star players and 2 that are a bit more reserved. And it feels like BC maybe a little bit everybody wants to get out there and do their thing, and there's nobody there really playing that support role. So I think that's going to be something to keep an eye on going forward. We spoke about the gap at the top, though, Imperium. It is closing. It's down to just 2 points and then a 10-point drop off to 3rd.
Yeah, this is what I want to see. Influence Rage, overtaken the position that Lazarus had at the end of yesterday's games. 10 points behind Inco Gaming. VIVO Keyed, by the way, came into this game in 9th place. That's how close the overall standings in the top 9, and they end day 4 with 155 points in that 4th place. So to rise back up for VIVO Keyed, with no doubt about it. Rise Esports getting 2 chicken dinners today, up in 7th place on equal points as Loops. Nova with a good result to end the day, up into 8th, and Team Queso, they've had some good aggression and they're in 9th with 136.
I gotta say though, I think it's like, I don't want to say middle of the pack, but the top of the middle of the pack have been the teams that really shine today. Teams like VIVO Keyed, Influence Rage, Lazarus, Loop Esports, Rise Esports obviously able to pick up 2 chicken dinners tonight. Nova, Queso, they've all been putting in work. I think that's really exciting. In an ideal world, all right, Imperium, if we really want to see it come down to the wire, then tomorrow, those top 2 teams are getting hot drop for a game or 2 so that everyone else can catch up.
Yeah, that's idealistically, but that's probably not going to be the case. We very, very rarely in PUBG Mobile, right, see targeted hot drops come out. We might see hot drops because 2 teams are too stubborn to split in some way, shape, or form, but we tend not to really see targeted hot drops. You can see 3 players, by the way, of Influence Rage in the top eliminations of today's games. It was very much a team-wide performance, and even 2 of the players now in terms of top MVP, followed by Korea holding on to that top spot.
Really impressive indeed. It shows the individual performance. And you know what? While he's not in the top 3, number 4, Nicholas, has been putting in work for me. He's the standout player for Black Dragons for me personally. His nade usage has been on point tonight. That's something we definitely saw towards the end there and earlier on in the evening. So if there's one positive that Black Dragons can take from the night, I think that it's probably Nicholas and his performance. And I'm really looking forward to seeing them develop as the season goes on. But Imperium, that's the halfway point of the Americas Elite League. We're halfway through Season 4 at the end of tonight. Now, just a reminder, we are not going to be live tomorrow. Instead, the next play date will be Thursday, which unfortunately, I believe, Imperium, you won't be joining me on. So I'm very sad, but I do have a backup Irishman that should be able to fill in.
Look, once it's another Irish person, I'm happy with that. You can never have enough look at the Irish. You can never have enough pots of gold swinging through the fences of these tournaments.
Brilliant. And I will also try and find a pair of sunglasses or something just to make sure that everything is on point, yeah? We'll keep the glasses trend alive. Anyway, look.
Exactly.
That is it for us tonight. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Remember, we are not live tomorrow. We will be back same time, same place on Thursday for Playdate number 5 with the super secret caster. We will see you all then. Until then, have a good night, and we'll see you next time.